Surprise! It's Rebel Fox. No, it's not. I took over from Rebel Fox. Welcome back to the VCS. Now week 2 is starting. Week 1. The last series was actually week 1. Now we're in week 2. Welcome back, Crincy. And yeah, it's a new iteration of the caster desk. I don't think we've ever done this before, so it's gonna be exciting for this series of Flash against Cerberus right in front of us.
Yeah, Flash vs. Cerberus right in front of us with me as maybe the biggest Cerberus fan of the last 2 years on the VCS English broadcast. It's been a very interesting series for me, of course, to cast. As of course, I also liked Team Flash last week against Garm. They were definitely doing well on their own, despite the loss, I would say. So I definitely have high hopes for that team as well. And gotta say, Cerberus, if they play a cleaner 2-0 against Team Flash than Garm did, I would call them maybe, and that's a good thing to have you on the desk you will likely have a strong opinion for that. I would call them the best performing team so far in the VCS, this split.
Oh, wow, okay. Maybe. I mean, the split is very much has very much just started, right? So it's kind of hard to make sweeping statements, but Cerberus to me last week looked very coordinated, very purposeful, I'd say. So very much knowing what they had to do. We talked a lot on cast about their usual setup, just going for team fights, letting Artemis carry later on, giving Yado all the tools he needs to be effective. What was your impression on Cerberus?
I kind of liked what they were really doing. I didn't expect them to really start off on firing on all cylinders against Psych and Buffalo, first of all, because I expected Psych and Buffalo to be like one of the better, if not the best team, as they did very little changes. And from Cerberus, I mean, despite this one Mickey Mouse window split that they have won, they never looked the same again afterwards. Especially Yado looked very, very bad. And him looking back on form, Artemis really putting on the carry pants again, was a delight to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very impressed with this team, and they are maybe my dark horses, especially if we stay in this kind of meta that we saw in the first series today, where everything is very slow, everything is very controlled, no chaos, no insane initiation sense that we know and love from the VCS. If everything is team fight and everything is about objectives, well, suddenly Cerberus is back in the mix, right? Because they were the best team at this kind of style. They were the team fighting gods. They had the best ADC and the best tank play in the league, so maybe it's their meta. Maybe they can strike again to actually represent the VCS at an international tournament, because that was robbed from them, right? Winter Split, yes, it was an official title, and yes, they walked away with a shield, but they never got to go to any international tournament. So maybe now is their time to shine.
I mean, is it really fair to say that they got robbed of an international tournament when they knew before that they wouldn't really face one, and the split
That's
maybe wasn't as
that's
wide?
very fair.
Actually, I think that the opponent is the team that got robbed of international tournaments, because Team Flash, I mean, quite literally, objectively, you can say they planned to go to Worlds and then weren't able to go, which is very sad to see. And the team also never really fully bounced back from that, as of course it makes a difference economically for your team if it was a strong team that much before. They had Kati on their team, who is a very stellar player in his own right. Now they can't have him anymore, as Garm was taking care of that one. And now, of course, for Team Flash, with a good showing in week 1, I think they, yeah, of course, also have something to prove against Cerberus. They will want to start to have their first win on the board. And I mean, if Cerberus plays like old Cerberus of last few splits, that should be possible for them.
Yeah, I actually am looking at how those two teams played in week 1. We might actually see a very big clash of styles today, where Flash will dominate the early game and Cerberus will try to scale for the late game. It's a little bit of a run against the clock, right? Where Flash, if you can get 10k gold ahead, maybe you can close it out. But then again, we saw some woes in the mid to late game for this team, so I'm not so sure. I would predict Cerberus to win, but this might be a very interesting series if you just look at how these teams clash in styles. Do you have, I want to ask you, do you have players to look out for these two teams? Maybe let's start with Flash, because we talked a lot about Cerberus. Do you have a player you're keeping your eyes on the Flash side of things?
I mean, in general, just because of his banger performance in week 1 would be Yoshino. I mean, he
Oh,
definitely made Kiai look like a fool in this situation with him solo killing him. I think it was connected with a Psy matchup. But as we speak of matchups, we head
ooh,
instantly into this draft And here we go, as we already are past the first few rotation buttons. Ashe is still open, I gotta say, so this might just be a first pick worthy champion for the side of Team Flash. I would assume so, because otherwise Ashe support would just be taken away. And Ashe support paired with Artemis on red side, that seems to be a very strong combination that Team Flash should definitely be wary about.
Yeah, I think in Western leagues, especially in LEC, this would instantly be Elise first pick. So we haven't really seen Elise pop up too much on VCS for some reason. VCS teams just don't like Elise too much, so instead we have a Vi first pick. I'm not the biggest fan of that one, but let's see what Fukwon can bring to the table with a Vi. A lot of agency, a lot of early game power, but this leaves open Pun's original one trick. Pun, before he came into the league, he was known for Jax. Oh, Spider.
Spider not quite locked in. Gotta say though, Elise gets banned a lot, and this is it. Spoon sadly not here. He asks all the time, where's Spider? There's Spider. Spider locked in for the side of Draktar for Cerberus. I'm very excited to cast it also, as I have seen not many Elise games, but I know from junglers, I speak to some amateur semi-pro players who were telling me how insanely broken Elise really is. She kind of doesn't even fall off late game anymore as much as she just keeps high damage throughout the game with this Night Harvester Sorcerer Shoes build and can just even chunk down tanks with it in the later stages of the game, as just now. Ashe gets kind of ignored, which surprises me, but the Vi first pick must be of some value to the side of Flash, I gotta say. And they lock in the Jace, which is of course now a flex pick. I could see Yoshino on it, but I could also see Jane on it.
A little surprising to see the Jace paired with an AD jungler, in my opinion. Usually you want to really go AP AD, but here we have the Annie you mentioned before, so second rotation, but it's still coming in, and that is one strong engage composition from the side of Flash, with a nice follow-up on Jace as well. So Annie and Vi together, that Varus might actually have to look out for his life all the time in the later stages of the game. Not so sure about their laning performance. How do you like Annie in lane right now?
Kind of weird to say, because she kind of does nothing in lane, just kind of gets to farm one of ages, so to say. Or if he's picked in support, he's basically just a Flash Timber stun bot. I would call her theoretically a flex pick, but I have seen her more mid lane than support in recent times, so I think that's a more likely option. As the Renekton plush gets locked in for the side of Cerberus, Renekton potentially up against the Jace is a matchup I actually kind of dislike, because I think the Renekton kind of doesn't win the lane and also doesn't get to scale better into it. It's just good if you want to weak set the Renekton into the top lane and just play strongly on Artemis, which would of course be something that I expect Cerberus to do anyway. And I'm just worried about Artemis in some sense, because while he has a strong pick for himself, yeah, the Varus needs some sort of peel and protection, and I just wonder what 1OP wants to play with it.
Yeah, but Quincy, you forgot about the Elise Renekton, the old school combo, the Season 4 special.
Where, actually, yes. It would be kind of weird not to play one Renekton Elise when you have it, right? I mean, I've seen those before, but it didn't work out quite well for that team that was playing that one. It is Renekton Elise, of course, being locked in, and it could be Renekton mid lane still, right? I mean, we have seen some games of that. Not in the last series, where we also theorized about it, where Renekton and Jace were on the same team. But Renekton for Yado may be a pick. But Yado looked good last week. I think he could also play like some more traditional mid lane champion that requires some mechanical proficiency. So far, he looked good in week 1, as I said. And I just wonder also what the answer for Puddin would be, as the AD carry pool gets kind of pincered.
Yeah, in game we can talk a little bit more about Puddin against Artemis, because that is the spicy matchup, considering Artemis was kind of his mentor, and it's the next in succession of the Slayer Artemis Puddin kind of master to apprenticeship. But let's focus on this pick coming in here. It's one of the Yado specials. It's one of his most played champions, and he used to be the one to bring this Victor back into the meta in VCS. Yeah, so no surprises there. I don't really like Victor Elise as a combo, but tells me that Cerberus wants to kind of ignore mid lane, just scale there and fight around the two side lanes.
I mean, you can't just play on all 3 lanes if you are Draktar, so I guess putting Yado and Victor makes sense. I mean, just a comfort champion for him to really round out the composition, bring in some AP damage, as this Varus on this current patch would likely just go for the lethality option. It's what I would assume here, so I think that's where he's going for. and we see Pullin locking in the Sivir. Gotta say, Caitlyn would have been open, but maybe that's not something that they would really want to play, especially against Varus, which is kind of a soft counter to the Caitlyn matchup. That's gets locked in for them. And Nautilus to really make Artemis' life a bit more hellish. Yeah, more engaged onto the squishy, immobile AD carry. You love to play Varus into this competition, right? I mean, you're an ADC main yourself.
Oh yeah, Puddin wants to kill Artemis over and over again, so he just told all his teammates, let's just make sure we can kill this Varus, because everyone can engage on them, even the Sivir adds a lot of engagement. That's actually the perfect answer to this kind of ultra engaged composition. Just eat your ADC, kick W.
Just eat him, lol. Yeah, could actually work. I mean, Tahm needs some levels to have his Devour as an ultimate ability up. It used to be way easier to just gobble him up in the laning phase, so the first few levels they need to be very, very careful. But I mean, it's Artemis in 1 OP, potentially the strongest bot lane of the VCS. It of course remains to be seen. The split is still very, very young, but they definitely have shown up in the past, so that's something that is to be looked out for. And in general, I like this answer a lot. So much hard engage, right? The Vi targeted ability to knock you up, the Nautilus having the same. You have a flash Tibbers potentially on the enemy side, and all the time just to make it so much easier for Artemis to play the game. I think that's a very good response at the end of the draft.
So let me ask you, where are we looking for the first few minutes? What do you think is going to happen in terms of jungle interaction and action in the early game? Where are these two junglers looking for first ganks or counter ganks?
I mean, for the side of Draktar, I mean, he's playing Elise together with Renekton. I would assume that the first path would be towards the top side, at least, that they will try to go for an early dive. I mean, either at around the level 3 mark or the level 6 mark, it's a good opportunity to pull that one off against the Jace on the enemy side. And for the side of Team Flash, I'm not quite sure where they're really going for. I mean, I would assume them to play towards this bot side matchup, as we, I think, will very quickly load into the Rift. I'm currently just now getting baited by the clean feed a little bit, as yeah. I'm not quite sure actually.
Yeah, we saw some Rift there on the computers, but maybe it's just a practice thing. You never know. So right now we're still staring at the stage. So we didn't have the. Oh, there we go. There's the Rift. I can see the little elk thingy on the side of the Rift. So we are right into game.
Yeah, we are right into the game as we load onto it. And
whoa, what is Froggy doing? Holy, there's this little frog running out of the base, and that had some speed. Okay, I've never seen that before. Nice job, Observers.
Yeah, but that was not the Froggy bit that we usually know, like from Saigon Buff. It was a different one. Either way of that. Fook 1 on this Vi pick. You asked me where it's really pathing towards. I would expect them to also maybe match this early aggression from the Renekton Elise to some extent. Just so you know, Yoshino's on the Jace. A champion ranged into melee, you would likely get the first push against this, despite Renekton's early prowess. So, yeah, being covered by the Vi would be something that makes it a bit easier for them and make him not fall to early ganks on their side. So I think Fook1, because of that one, starting on his own blue side red buff to help him out a little bit and to make sure that Pan just can't take off on this top side Renekton pick. It's just so baffling to me that to see Pan being strong sided for once.
Well, yeah, Pan used to actually have some carry champs up his sleeve, but I feel like in 2023, Renekton is a little bit of a fake strong side champion, right?
Yes.
A lot of teams just pick him and then ignore him for a long time. I'm interested to see what Draktar decides to do. He did start bot side, so 3-minute top gank is definitely on the cards. Could be something they try to do, and Jace usually has push in the early game, as you can see here. Yoshino, insane laning performances in the first week, so we expect him to dominate Pan at least in the 1v1 matchup, but this could be the bait that Cerberus set up for Yoshino to overpush and then die to the Elise gank.
Oh, and Pan missed the third minion. It's such a disaster. I mean, I'm just kidding. Yoshino hits level 2, has of course great control of this wave, as you said, and that's also one thing that was excelling Cerberus in the split that they won. They didn't even always strongside Artemis. He was actually being left alone quite a bit in some games and still just one lane in the 2v2 or even 2v3 sometimes, so he would still be fine if he isn't getting much attention from the side of Draktar or Yado in the general theme of things. So let's wait and see how they will play this one out as yeah, with Pan. I mean, I think it might also just be Cerberus being surprised that Elise is being left open. Usually you would expect the red side to ban it, but they maybe kind of expected to maybe get a small edge there, as Drakthar got to play release, and maybe as they actually got release, with Team Flash not picking it up, they were like, why not just pick Renekton? We want it on Pan anyway. And for Pan specifically, I'm interested to see what his item build will be. If he will play the Torpedo Renekton build with the Blade of the Wound King Prowler's Claw to just one-shot somebody and then likely usually die, or just to go the standard Gordrinker item build that we have seen more recently.
Elise is close, but she doesn't decide to go for the gank. And now, what is she going to accomplish? Is she trying to wrap around to get behind Yoshino? That could be something we are looking at. I would really like to see the top side here, because bot side is just trading. Oh, but here we have the first jungle clash, and Fook 1 going in, but Drakthar wins the smite and now in a much better position, but Drakthar kind of exposed. He has to flash over the wall. Does Yoshino follow up? He is looking at the wall, but not quite there.
He also was very much out of mana, I think. I mean, he can maybe pull it off, but... Oh, Artemis can 2v2 maybe? Artemis dies 2v2 against the bot lane of Pollen and Sova, one of the bot lanes that we didn't really have on our menu so far, and that's something I didn't expect. I mean, Tahm Kench, not really the champion to really protect your pre-6 that much, only offensively, and maybe that's why they fell down to it. Here we see again how it happened. Ignite being down, heal onto him.
Honestly, just disrespectful from Artemis there. Just thought he could walk away slowly, flash pretty late, so strike number 1 goes to his apprentice. The master loses the first interaction to Puddin, and yeah, maybe I'm pushing too much on this storyline, but I think it's pretty funny, because the first iteration of Artemis being kind of behind the big ADC was Slater playing for Flash, and then Artemis being on the sideline as Pun needs to be careful. Oh, he's getting closer to the bush. This could be...
Oh, Fuku charges up.
There he is, and that's an easy one. No?
Is it? Pan doesn't have Dominus, but he got out with the slice and dice combination, and Yoshino doesn't want to flash offensively for it. Also, Pan having his own flash would just trade the flash basically with him. But I'm just still baffled by the fact that Artemis and One-OP got 2v2'd by Pan and Sova. Either way, very disrespectful play for them. I think that's what ultimately cost them. And also one thing that we haven't addressed so far, it's lethal tempo, Artemis, Varus, and you also started with the components of the Noon Quiver, so it will not be the poke Varus this time. It will actually be the more scaling option to go for the crit item build, and potentially something like a Rage Blade, maybe even being in for the on-hit part of it, but it's either on-hit or crit Varus usually with those components in his inventory.
And I'm wondering, is that a little bit of ego coming through from Artemis? He doesn't want to play that laid-back poke style of Varus. He wants to be the carry. Is that maybe... Could be a mistake later on, because this build, of course, doesn't spike as hard on one item or on 2 items. Will be better in the late game, but I'm wondering, do you think he can actually auto-attack into all those CC tools on the other team? Maybe staying back and playing a little bit of a long-ranged poke style would have been the better choice in this game.
I think with this Tahm Kench pick, he can somewhat auto-attack, I guess, in the team fights. Gotta say though, like the enemy composition kind of screams at you to maybe play the poke bit, because they don't have an actual tank.
And Ron-OP gets caught out. That's 1 kill for Artemis. Can they chase on to put in? Ron-OP is trying to buy a little bit of time, trying to get space for Artemis. Fook 1 needs to be very careful if he gets tagged by Ron-OP. Yep, okay, he disengages in time. That was very close. He actually was full HP and still almost dead there. And 1 kill back to Cerberus. Nice first interaction for Drakthar. He didn't find the top lane gank, but at least he finds a kill in the bot side of the map.
Yeah, one way to enable Artemis back again onto this map to get him fed with 1 more kill into his pocket. So at the end of the day, gold back to even. Also Artemis naturally with a small CS lead. You never see Artemis without a CS lead basically. In this current meta is something that we usually would expect, as we see a little bit of a dive to the mid lane. Both mid laners very even in CS, both on scaling picks of course, and with the Word of Ages very much so, as much as the Victor. I think the Victor of course a bit more easier to play, as he has such good area control and any kind of relying on the Flash Tibbers engagement tool. And here's Drakthar at the top lane. He misses the cocoon though.
They can still get the kill maybe if Drakthar... No, Drakthar is dead! Ooh, that was misplayed pretty badly from Cerberus. Pun, at first they don't land the very easy CC there with the cocoon just going white, and then the follow-up wasn't great either. Pun could have maybe tanked it a little bit better for Drakthar there, so not the best execution on the super strong combination of Renekton and Elise. They still probably get the better of that end of the trade, because they push in the wave, they get a reset for Pun, but Yeah, let's look at this again. Draxler,
Yeah.
what did he do?
So impatient. He could just walk up a bit more. I don't think he's even in vision at this point. So he had all the time in the world to really think this through in his mind, to really pull off the cocoon play. And even if not, I mean, they still follow through with the play, which is a fine decision in itself. But as you say, I think Punch should tank at least 1 shot more, maybe even 2, to make it a clear 1-0. Like this, it's just a 1-1. Yoshino getting a kill, and that's still scary on the Jace. He scales very well with items, I gotta say. And he has very expensive items too, with maybe even later on the Rural Mana Sevilda Squatch combination coming out with him. Maybe we might even see the Godwinker Jace we have seen in LCK recently instead of the Eclipse one, as Eclipse got changed a little bit. It's no longer a sustain item. And Fukwon rewards himself with the Rift Herald as an expense compared to the Mountain Break on the other side, which is of course something that they really want to have to nullify a bit of the any engaged potential and the Jace poke.
And we see Cerberus actually pivoting to bot side control, trying to zone Puddin away from his wave. Puddin has to stay super far back, so now Team Flash is reacting with a little bit of counter pressure, but that's a lot of money into Artemis. That's a big advantage now in CS and in turret plating, so Team Flash maybe a little bit slow to react and protect the ADC, so now Puddin will stay behind in terms of items and power spikes, especially if you play crit against crit. Those first item power spikes are quite important, so this Sivir is now resigned to just farm out for the next, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, because she's gonna hit her items, the item timings a little bit later than the enemy ADC, which also gives Cerberus a nice way to play this mid game aggressively. They still have super strong engage on on the side of Renekton and Elise and so on, so I feel like Cerberus is in a comfortable position in this game so far.
And we also see the fully adapted way of Artemis item builds here, as he wants to guarantee that he gets the auto attack. He doesn't go for the Kraken Slayer itemization, he goes for the shield bow instead, to at least have some form of survivability if he gets engaged on, with the shield coming out, with the increased lifesteal being there, so he can play these later teamfights out well with that one, as he gets, as he assumes to get VCS in this fight, to really have this passive going on with the increase in attack speed, so he will lifesteal up quite a bit in these fights. As the hero charge goes down in the bot lane, we see more plates falling to the side of Team Flash, at least some sort of a breath of fresh air for the side of Puddin, and so I gotta say that they get some resources back into their pocket and can, I would say they must be around even gold against Artemis and 1OP right now, so it will be fine on their end, but regardless of that, it looked pretty dire beforehand, as on their own Artemis created the gold lead in the CS department yet again.
Yeah, and I actually feel like this is something they need to go back and watch again on the Cerberus side, because that was quite a big macro mistake. They completely misread the map situation. They didn't know where Fukwon was, so they could have protected the bot tower much better, but recalling all of their players opened up the bot tower for the Rift Herald charge, and that's a lot of gold back, as you said, to put in. And that's exactly what they didn't want to happen. So now, out of nowhere, Puddin is back here with first item too, so he's not actually as far behind as I said earlier, and this is going okay for the team fighting aspect of Flash. They still need a lot of time if you look at their item builds, and as you pointed out earlier, this is going to be a little bit more of a melee style Jace, with the Gore Drinker being built in the top lane.
It actually is, and speaking of Puddin, I mean, with the Kraken Slayer against the Sheep, he probably deals more damage than Artemis overall right now, so in the teamfights we definitely need to watch out for what Puddin can really do. I mean, if he actually gets to auto-attack a lot, Silver being a bit outranged by the Varus, making it kind of hard in some instances, but it's just for the side of Team Flash. What I think is important is that the poke from the Jace lands, if he is good with the team, and if not, that of course the engage from the Flash Timbers is landing by the side of Jane. I don't think that Cerberus will be easy to open without that one, as of course Fukwon also has other ways to engage the fight, and so does Sora, but I mean, you don't want to have it too telegraphed, so you definitely need to have somebody like this one.
There's a flash over the wall, and that's a lot of CC, and there's the Tibbets. That's an easy kill. This time around, they actually make the kill happen. Last time I called it an easy kill, they actually bamboozled me, but this time there's too much. And that's a kill 1.5 minutes before the dragon spawning. They got the flash from Yado, and their ultimates should be on cooldown. So that's pretty much just a good exploit, giving Jane time to scale maybe into his first item. He's pretty far behind the curve right now. We're on 13 minutes, and he still doesn't have the rower, which is a little concerning from my side, but once again, good aggression from Team Flash. They really have to, this combination of players and just synergy between their players down. even in their match against Gum, this looked very much the same. So I'm super impressed with this team that everyone thought would be one of the weaker teams of the league. And yes, they are 0-2, but all three of the early games so far have been quite impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely a very stable early game. On the overall side, though, I wonder if it's really worth to burn so many summoner spells just to kill Yado there. I mean, of course,
True.
I got Yado's Flash and Ultimate, but also causing them 2 flashes, and then Ignite from Sora, I think, as well. Also their ultimates. And overall, it will be back for the Drake for both sides, so it should be fine. As the top lane gets a close 1v1. I think Pan wins this if he gets close to him again, and Yoshino needs to wait out the Dominus. If he, however, waits out the Dominus, then Yoshino can turn this and just full on melee the Renekton here with just a Shock Blast. But as long as the W is back up for Pan, I think Pan wins this again. So it makes sense that both don't really go full committing for it.
Good respect from Yoshino. I'm so impressed with this laning, because last time we saw him, when Flash was on their 1-13, the worst split ever from one of our teams, they looked horrendous, and even Yoshino looked pretty bad. But now back in the league, I had so many worries about this player, because he used to be a legend of the team. Oh, we go on Yado again.
Yeah, Volpicker coming out.
Another flash over the wall. Yado deals so much damage to Fug. They can maybe counteract this. Pan is here as well. And from the other side, Artemis. Oh, it's going horribly wrong. Okay, Ron OP flashing after the enemy. But Jane, it's just a 1-for-1. They actually walk away fine. Now Druxler needs to be careful. There's a big angry bear chasing him off his own jungle.
Tibbers is very scary in this situation. Tibbers the hidden MVP of this fight, alongside, of course, the other mid lane pet being there, which is Yado's Chaos Storm, also kind of dealing a lot of damage there, probably more than Yado himself. And with that, it's a 1-for-1. I think overall Cerberus is fine with it, as they have the better position for the Drake. Sora was going, I don't know where, probably to another country to get executed there, so it almost feels like a 2-for-1, not in the gold department, but in the overall map presence department. So Cerberus gets to take the Drake. Also, trading 1-for-1 against Victor, not a good idea, as he gets to take his glorious evolution. But I digress, as we see this replay. He hard against Yado again, but he gets off the Chaos Storm in this super close corridor. So he still deals a lot of damage despite dying, and then the whole cavalry is there for the side of Cerberus. 1-OP's flash was a bit optimistic. Either way, Giant doesn't get chased down by Drakthar, but Drakthar gets chased down by the side of the Timbers, but he still survives and is ready for this Drake play. So overall, Sam was fine with that one, as Pan and Yoshino, yeah, they are still having a normal one in the top lane.
Oh, Yoshino needs to be very careful. This wave is gone. He's on the wrong side of the rift, but he has the assistance from his team. Pan now knows about that, and Pan is under danger now, being dived. Does he have the ultimate? Yes, he activates it, but that's so much damage. Well done. The CC is chained together, and Big Crocodile is made into a bag. Team Flash is so impressive. Their coordination between their players is just on point. They're looking, especially when it comes to these skirmish situations, they are very impressive to me. Mechanically, chaining together their CC perfectly, and yeah, giving Cerberus a run for their money. A 1.3k gold lead now for the new old team in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a clean dive without the wave. I mean, I could see many VCS teams screwing that up mechanically in some way. You need to really have your CC chain ready to go to prevent Renekton from really doing too much while activating Dominus to buy some time there, and then just doing sustained shenanigans with the Kalnamik, with the Gore Linker. It could just end up in a 1-for-1 or even a disaster dive if you don't play that out cleanly, but they did. I mean, it just was a good play by the side of Team Flash to punish Pan a little bit more, and at the end of the day, net them a small gold lead, which is, of course, to be matched up against the 2 Drakes that Cerberus got on the other side. I think at the end of the day, it would be a very even state of the game overall, I would say, as Cerberus maybe even a tad more happy with these Drakes being on their side, and Yado scaling very comfortably despite being a bit bullied by ganks, I gotta say. And yeah, Jane finally finished this one of ages. First minute stack is on it, and will take like 9 minutes for him to get a free level of it, which will be quite late for one of ages in general. But other than that, yeah, I mean, Polin also being very well farmed in the game, having already 2 kills.
So, oh, never mind. Maybe I don't have the time to ask you. Yep, my paladin just runs away. Nice. So, as we slow down a little bit, because the mid game is going to hit and no objectives are on the map, how do you want Team Flash to play this out now? So, from their perspective, they've had 3 very good early games. They have a composition that's pretty plug and play, pretty easy to execute. Basically, just run at them. A little bit of Bronzodia going on, in my opinion, with a lot of CC and single target, just point and click CC, I should say. So, what is their goal for the next 10 minutes? How do they exploit Cerberus in the next few minutes here?
It's simple, they kill Artemis. I mean, it won't be just that this is simple because the time Kench will be around it, but I think the time to really focus on the top lane is kind of over right now, as Yoshino should basically be in a position to just be fine against the Renekton. He has been before, and Renekton will just fall off on his own anyway, so I think he should maybe shift the focus a little bit. I think ganking Yado will get harder and harder as he gets more self-control with all the Victor upgrades being in his pocket. He should be at around 2 upgrades right now, with 160 CS being in his department, and also 1 assist, and like having some cannons. He will likely be at that 200 mark right now, maybe a little bit above that. So I think Artemis should be like the hard focus of your competition right now. The others are either too hard to gank or not worth to gank, in my opinion. But you need to have, of course, a way to work around the Devour from the Tahm Kench. And in general, you need to get at least like 1 Drake, because otherwise this Drake soul stack win condition is very, very scary for the side of Team Flash. It would be a potential Chemtech soul that Cerberus would claim for themselves. 1 more minute up for the next Drake, and of course, for the side of Team Flash, that means need to shift your vision control and map control a bit more around this bot set area to make sure that you can have a good fight around the Drake.
Yeah, but looking at the champions and their power spikes right now, I'm wondering if Cerberus should even try to fight here, because there are quite a few items coming in for Flash, and in general, I think their champions, if you look at any compared to the Victor and the current itemization point, I'm not so sure Cerberus can fight this, and indeed, Flash is looking for the engage there. Fook very far forward and just sparring.
Very early Herald. I mean, the Herald will get the charge through, but the Herald won't be a distraction for the Drake, which is something that I would have preferred there to be just by a bit more seconds with it. I mean, maybe the Herald was timing out. I don't want to charge them too harshly for that one, and as it got the charge off, that's maybe even the best you could get out of it, and it still managed to make the positioning for this Drake a bit better for them, but Puddin just took a good chunk.
He does have... Oh, there's the fight. Oh, we see Jane flashing in. There's the Tibbers, but it didn't really do all that much, just stunning Run P. And now Cerberus in a good position to chase. Artemis with the flash ultimate of Fook. He has to flash away immediately. Yoshino, this is going... Is it going great? It's very muddy, very hard to see what's actually happening. But Cerberus is finally putting together the kills. So Run P chasing, once again aggressively flashing forward. Run P, you're not playing Leona in this game. Stop with the flash forward just to tongue lick the opponent. And he very comfortably walks away. But Cerberus got what they came for. They will walk away with the better dragon here, and that is exactly what they need to scale into the later parts of the game. Soul point secured.
And not just that, I mean, it's soul point for them, a very, very strong soul, I gotta say that one. And they also take the mid lane outer turret, so a bit more map control for them to find a potential 4th Drake for their side. Gold lead for the side of Team Flash, a bit more than 500 gold, which at the 20-minute mark is not really something to write home about. And we have seen these fights, right? A fair 5v5 looks very, very easily manageable for the side of Cerberus Esports, as the any Flash Timbers engage just kind of has to work, and they kind of need to one-shot somebody to have the full value of it. And Yoshino, if he is in the team fight, he needs to land poke beforehand to really have the same value or more value than the Renekton. Otherwise, this God Ranker Renekton going Stark second can also just do a lot of brawling, and these front to back fights are what Cerberus loves to do.
And back in the day when we saw Tahm Kench support every single game, because reasons, one strategy to fight against it in teamfights was a lot of AoE damage, right? So Annie, in my mind, would be a really good answer into Tahm Kench, because he can stun him and the person he wants to protect with his ultimate, or back then the W. But this time Jane just only hit Ron P, and it didn't really do anything. Ron P dropped to, I don't know, half HP maybe, but no one could follow up. The Sivir, as you pointed out earlier, is pretty low range, so she needs the enemies to come into her to really be effective, or use a W later on with a little bit more damage. But I think this was mostly on Jane. Sadly, we can't see the replay right now. Oh, and here we go again. Jane this time landing the ultimate on the ADC, but Artemis protected. He's still in there. Artemis, does he go down? Yeah, there he goes. Puddin is pretty low. They can't really chase too effectively. And Tibbers is protecting them against Yado's counterattack. But look at the health bars. They dropped to so low HP, even while finding the perfect target on Artemis. So these teamfights look quite hard to play from Flash's side.
Gotta say though, as a big Cerberus fan in general, that was not a good sequence of play for Cerberus. I mean, staying so long on the dying turret, giving away the shutdown from Artemis, I mean, just to trade for some health bars is not really a worthy play, and this is something that shouldn't really happen again. Turret was basically dying again. Artemis probably confident because he could play it around together with the Devourer, but not that well. I mean, 1OP has to spin him out. He almost gets goal at himself and has to die there. So Adam is definitely putting him into some sort of trouble there. 2k gold lead yet again for Team Flash. As I said again though, 2k gold lead doesn't really mean that much anymore. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? But it's not really game breaking or game significant in any way.
And walk me through Sivir itemization here, because I'm a big Sivir player, and I love this new item you can build. Of course, the Navori Quick Blade. It feels so strong and so good. But she seems to be going for old crit itemization. This seems to be the full on-hit
Infinity Edge, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that? Do you like it?
I think it's fine. The Navori, of course, would have stronger boomerang blades, so the Q would definitely have some extra damage that you can profit of. I think either of that is kind of fine, and gotta say the Navori Quick Blades in general, not a new item, it's just a new relevant item as it got changed with Passive levels. I mean, you can basically call it a new item with an old name and an old icon, basically. That kind of makes sense, I guess.
And the added ability damage is very new.
It is, yeah, that's why you can call it a new item, basically. It's kind of fair in that sense. Either way, Infinity Edge I think is fine here. I mean, you basically just want to work on your auto attacks. Ganatezu, with the aspect that they are getting a bit outranged in the Sivir against Varus department, maybe Navori would be a good option here as well. Maybe a better one even, as you rely on your Q damage to be really high.
Yeah, and now we really have to hone in on, does he actually finish this item? Because the dragon is coming up, that's Soul for Cerberus, and Podden needs that IE to be the threat that Team Flash might be able to do, for Team Flash to be able to win that team fight, because that's crucial for the game. If they lose the soul here, maybe it's not a game-winning soul, I'm not sure, but it's still a huge disadvantage, so...
I think the soul is definitely game winning. I mean, most souls kind of are, gotta say though, and the Chem soul with Renekton and Varus, the life-stealing crit Varus especially. I mean, how do you even kill that guy? I mean, damage reduction when he's low, he gets to heal more, he gets to hurt you more with his item build itself.
But then you have to recall. They're trying to funnel the resources into him, but the dragon is coming up in 30 seconds. They might have missed the timing here, and Cerberus with a good punish. They know the enemy ADC has to recall for an item, but they're not giving them any space, and now Puddin has to fight without his big crit multiplier.
Yeah, and also Jane not really finding the game impact he probably wanted to have with his Banshee's Veils, fully stacked Word of Ages Annie, and he's not really being that respected by Cerberus right now, as Draktar going really close, and they can just look for picks. And just pick and poke a little bit with the Elise, that's why she's strong right now. Can easily chunk out even the tankiest of tanks, and Fukwan, here's some MR, but I don't think that the Elise, with the Sorcerer's Boots, with the Batting Jewel, does care really much. And this is now Cerberus. They can, I mean, afford to go for a flip, right? If they lose the flip, okay, one Drake, some time wasted. But if they win the flip, they basically win the game.
He's in there, Fook is in there, but he has to flash immediately. He has to exit the pit, and that's the soul secured from the other side. Jane, this time hitting a lot of members with the Tibbers. Can they follow up? Where's the damage? Yoshino can't do anything. He's the melee Jace, but he's not dealing anything. And Pun might be able... Oh, wow, even Pun walks away with Runopi saving him there. This is horrible for Flash. They need to get the kills. Everyone is super low in Cerberus, but if...
They all get out.
There we go. That's the flash from Sora. No. The first kill goes over to Cerberus, and Flash just can't find the mark. They don't have the follow-up, and Cerberus just walks away with murder. They get the dragon and a kill, and Flash is just limping away there. Oh, their mid and late game still looks a little shaky.
Yeah, and as I said before, I mean, Cerberus can not only afford to go for the flip, it also isn't really a flip, as Elise has such better execute mechanics than the Vi, who even gets forced out of the pit here with the flash and the Voltmaker. Actually, as Fook 1, I would try to suicide myself for the steal here. I mean, you're just not that important right now, sorry Fook 1, as this fight gets dragged out. I mean, Cerberus doesn't really want the fight, they're kind of forced into it, and Flash, angry that they lost the soul to Cerberus, now wants to get away with at least some kills, and I mean, Sora wants to live up to his team's name, flashes forward just to get the engage going on, and while he does that, the damage reduction from the Chem Soul makes it so nobody dies, instead, of course, of Sora himself. So it is the soul, it is one kill up on top of that for Cerberus. And I said before, I mean, they had 2k gold down, that's completely whatever. I think this is a game-winning soul, especially with this composition. I mean, it could be worse, they could have something like an Olaf or something on the team. They don't have that one, but I mean, even with Renekton, with Varus, with Victor, that's such a good soul, and it's such a strong soul in general.
Yeah, and I have to wonder what would have happened. Oh, nice Q buffer there from Sora. He walks away. I have to wonder what would have happened if Sivir had the IE, because she had perfect positioning. She put W's through all of the enemy team. It was bouncing back and forth like crazy, but there was no damage because no IE. Dealt like 120 damage per tick, which really just tickled them. So that might have been the game-losing recall timing that Team Flash missed, and that's actually something you expect with new teams, right? These small little macro aspects that are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more obscure to teach, because everyone knows how to do transition into other sides. We're in 2023, we know how to transform pressure to the side lane and so on, how to play Barons mostly, but these recall timings and the intricacies over there might have been the downfall in this game for Flash. I don't want to be super negative though, because they're still impressing me in terms of their early game and how they can stand up to one of the better teams in terms of mechanics, but we need to see the next step taken from this team so they can actually win games.
We definitely need to do that, and as we get later in this game, gotta also say, like, Flash in the past this looked a bit like a pushover team. This time, I mean, they still have a GOAT lead, but it doesn't feel like they have one, but they're still kind of far from irrelevant in this, and it's still a game that's down to execution by the side of servers. I mean, it should be a formality for a coordinated team, but here we see Fuquan landing the engage with Vault Breaker plus ultimate, and they will maybe kill off the Renekton, but will there be a response? They actually won't. It's just a clean pickup. I mean, nicely done by Team Flash.
Yeah, this time they actually land the kill, and this is gonna be the go button for the Baron. Big frontliner is down. Ronopi could W in there to be a little bit of a scout on frontline, but it's dangerous, and they're playing still against the Sivir. Tib is not available in terms of active. It's still standing there and tanking Baron, but the Baron is going low, 3,000 HP. Yoshino from the other side. Yado is chasing him, but here we have a big stun, and the Baron is secured by Flash. They strike back. They actually get something back from this map. Very good pick on Pun, and they will extend the game with this Baron pickup. What can Cerberus do on the other side? Yado chased down the top laner, so Yoshino is not there. Pun does have a little bit of an advantage in terms of the timer on his death, so they might actually hard push in mid lane. No, they just will
you would see the pickup again. It looked a bit like an overcommitment at first to me, because it was a Vault Breaker fully offensive and then followed by the cease and desist, but the whole team was there. While there was no way for Cerberus to return the fire, the only thing they could do was Artemis missing his Chain of Corruption, the most missed ultimate in the game maybe, and ultimately ended up just in the pick, and Flash instantly pulling the trigger and forcing Baron despite playing against this Camstar composition just showed that they really have guts in this game and still want to really fight for it. At the end of the day, consolation prize for Cerberus was 1 inner turret and Yoshino's life, but considering they also lost the pick beforehand, that is a very small price to pay for Team Flash to get a Baron and get like some sort of control of this game again, especially with Elder being up in 80 seconds. I mean, they will likely still have the Baron buff, or at least some resemblances of that, considering the map control they can now establish, and this game is far from over.
Yeah, and so far they've failed at every setup for the Dragons, so let's see if they can do it a little bit better now with the assistance of Baron minions. It should be easier for them to push out mid lane and even bot lane. Jane is sitting in bot lane right now, trying to prep the wave and maybe add a little bit of pressure from the bot side. Okay, so right now Flash is once again ceding control of the river. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but they do have to respect the Victor range and the Victor choke control. So it looks like Cerberus is very comfortably just re-establishing vision. I see one nice little ward there. Maybe Yoshino can land a flank TP if this ward keeps alive.
Yeah, and so far the setup looks good from Cerberus again, and not so good from Flash again. I don't like that. I think Team Flash doesn't really need to respect them that much in this situation. Gotta tell you, so maybe I underestimate the camp soul a bit too much there. And Yado is basically half a tank. He's not as easy to burst down. He's crowned.
Yeah, Cerberus completely missed Flash's engage here. This could be game. 2 kills already secured, 3 kills secured. Cerberus overcommitting into a fight that was already lost, chasing their losses, and this is Flash running away with this team fight. Cerberus caught completely off guard. That's a 5-for-0 ace with multiple Flash still available from Cerberus' side. Court sleeping. I don't know what happened. Maybe they had to visit Rebel over there, because that was...
Wow.
That should just be... the game for Flash, pushing down the mid lane. Wow,
I'm
Cerberus
completely baffled, and so is
mistake.
Cerberus. They are so disjointed, and Flash just instantly pulled the trigger and just killed them all. I mean, they still had the Baron buff, they still have it right now, and it looked so over for them, but Team Flash just pulled the trigger and just straight up, and it's kind of disgusting, but also exciting me, because Team Flash really shows up in this game one.
What a finish for this team, and they finally break the barrier of winning a game. They have looked impressive in every game they played, but unfortunately, through 2 games back to back against GAM, it looked like it was once again on the cards for them to throw the game, but instead, this time they walk away with the victory. And what an exciting new team with so many young players for Flash.
Yeah, really. I mean, this just goes to show you maybe that GAM playing against Flash, looking a bit disjointed, is to some extent, of course, Gam's fault, but also Team Flash that's really stepping up. I mean, this is now the third game in the row with Team Flash has looked at least okay to good, I would say. So definitely something that we can credit them for. And with that, I can also show you guys the post-game start screen that we can also roll up to our broadcast. And here we see gold lead, of course, something that is a bit misleading, right? Because Team Flash was giving up every Drake. They finished this game without getting a single Drake. I just gotta add to that one. And with just them fighting for control, Cerberus kind of scaling next to them with his Chem Soul. And it still looked like a good game for Cerberus, but one pick, then the Baron, then 2 picks again, then killing everyone, just instantly ending. Team Flash, definitely a team to work out for.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of the composition they went into the game with. So easy to play, just point and click CC, so much follow-up, so many different players can initiate a team fight, and their coordination seems to be pretty good. Their macro is still lacking, but that's to be expected from a new team with good hands, but maybe not greatest practice in the macro sense of things. So I am really just hyped for this team after 1.5 series. So let's see if they can walk it home today.
Yeah, let's see if they can walk it home, or if Cerberus can bounce back in game 2. This game looked to be in their control for like half the time, I gotta say, maybe a bit more than that, and they didn't end up netting the win. Kind of also baffling that a team on that level loses to that simplistic engage, if any, via Nautilus, but either way, that's what just happened, and yeah, maybe Cerberus bounce back in game 2, maybe they won't, we will see. After a short break, we will go into an 8-minute-ish break, and after that, we will see us again for game number 2.
Welcome back, everyone, to series number 1, 2. I still don't really know the nomenclature
No.
of this series,
Semantics,
but
right?
yeah, first series of the week officially, and Flash surprised us with a very strong punish when Cerberus overstepped at 31 minutes around the Dragon Pit. They were setting up for yet another dragon, but this time Flash stroke, whatever.
Stroke.
And yeah, 5-0 team fight in their first game victory. Now, how can Cerberus come back in this series and actually confirm that they're one of the best teams? How can they not be shocked by Flash again in game number 2?
Actually, kind of interesting question because I think draft-wise and game plan-wise, it looked fine for Cerberus. More than fine, actually. But then, yeah, just one, two, maybe three little moments of hiccups, and it was all enough for the side of Team Flash to really take it. So I think draft-wise, if anything, I would rather say that Flash needs to adapt to it because Flash kind of, I don't want to say got the win handed on the silver platter, but they just kind of ripped it out of Cerberus' hands basically, and Cerberus didn't have the appropriate resistance for that kind of issue. And aside from that, I gotta say, Cerberus, they would have side selection for game 2, assuming loser picks side. I don't know if the ramifications of that changed a little bit over the years. Either way, I think, yeah, so red side looked fine for them. They can also still play these reluctant least compositions by the side of Cerberus. But for Team Flash, I mean, regardless of the fact that they, on paper, looked like to be losing this game, they won it in the end, and they showed why they deserve to win it, because they really have clean communication and coordination right now. We saw this one 4-man dive play onto Pan, where they were diving without wave and executed it cleanly, and I mean, the way they won this game is just really telling one story, and that's that Team Flash is ready to play the split and in general can really fire it out. I really want to see what their adaptations are for this draft in general, and if they on their side even think that they need to adapt, because this is one of those games where I could see a one back in draft really happening.
And if you were in the position of coach or analyst or whatever for Cerberus, would you try to eliminate some of those very easy engaged champions? Vi was first picked by the side of Flash, so they seem to be very practiced on that champion. Do you put a little bit more emphasis on that specific champion? Do you eliminate Annie maybe to make it a little bit harder to get these consistent engages? The answer is obviously yes, because Annie is banned at least on the side of Cerberus, and they are on blue side, so might actually have already considered some of the countermeasures. Do you first pick Vi here?
If it's open, maybe. I mean, if Elise is open, I would maybe pick Elise first. I think the Vi in general wasn't really the issue. I think you also don't need to ban Annie on blue side. I think that's kind of telling that maybe Yado and 1OP would not be ready to play the Annie right now. But I think it's very weird what really Flash is banning. I mean, they are target banning out Yado so early on in this first rotation. I think that's very appalling almost, because I mean, Sundo is not even that strong in the meta right now. It definitely has fallen off a little bit after it got some touch-ups by the White Games department. And Elise is open. Spoots needs to ask where's Spider usually. I think you should pick Elise.
So that strategy of banning out Yada is quite interesting to me, because last week Carix and I talked about or was it Rebel? Yeah, I think it was Rebel and I. We talked about Yada's champion pool issues, and maybe that is what Flash is trying to attack here, forcing him back on the victor, so they can once again kind of ignore him in the early game, just go side to side and try to snowball the game. But the Elise does come in as the first pick for Cerberus. So once again, Drugthon Elise, this time no Renekton to pair it up with, because that is snap picked away by Yoshino. Paired with, is that a Gragas jungle?
It is a Gragas jungle or mid lane, and I also like the Gragas pickup for the following reason. At Gragas top lane would be a good pick into the Renekton. They also already snapped that away by picking Gragas himself, which is also, of course, a very strong meta champion in general. It could also be a support Gragas, or assuming they play Senna, it could just be bot lane AP carry Gragas, but let's not dive too deeply into that one. I don't think they will pick that one up. I think Senna isn't even that bad right now. Yeah, exactly. Senna isn't even that bad right now, but this patch is basically not on the live patch. It's one patch behind, so it would take some time to really play that again, as Nautilus gets taken away, also something that was netting in the win for the side of Team Flash and Sora respectively, who played, for his standards, a very, very good game. And I remember this one play after the Soul Bay kind of entered it away where he didn't need to, but I can kind of understand the sentiment he had right there. And the Jax lock in pretty early on for Pan. It's also one of those champions that was one of the staples for Pan in general. whether you are strong side or weak side in general, Jack's a pickup, of course, to watch out for. Especially paired with Elise, I think you can still play one top lane with that.
Yeah, so back to the Jax. After a pun, his former one-trick champion, that would be strange. That would signal a mid lane Renekton blind, which I think is a little too spicy for my liking. But
if it wins you the top lane, why not?
Yoshino Fiora. Yoshino Fiora is legendary and it is locked in. So that's Renekton, Gragas, Fiora on one team. 3 top laners on one team. Can we go 5?
Maybe we can. Was it in VCS? Irgendwer was saying this draft where it was like Jace, Renekton, Gragas also in the first rotation, and it was like, I mean,
probably, yeah.
It was probably VCS. When just you don't even know the game it was, but you just know from the pics of it, it probably was VCS, right? Either way, top side fully locked in. They can now target Artemis in the bot lane a little bit more, with Tristana being taken away, Sipper now being taken away from Pollen, also the pick that netted them the win. So, what's left on the table? Ironically, the strong ADCs we see usually in LCK, like Caitlyn, Varus, Ashe, they are still all up, and they can kind of ignored here, which is kind of funny.
Where's Ashe?
Yeah, where Ashe? I mean, Ashe support should have been a lock-in at some point, right? I mean, you don't point it against Nautilus. I think probably Ashe will get ignored here because Nautilus is already there.
Yeah, so the Sivir ban is quite interesting to me because that is, to me, that reads to me like Cerberus is saying, okay, we need our bot lane to punish Sudden and Sorrow, we think we're better, and Sivir just gives them too much neutralizing power, so we want to make the bot lane a little bit more volatile, banning away the Sivir. A Varus ban that is a Braum ban. What patch are we on?
13.3. I don't know why you banned Braum there, but Braum is a good. Braum is good against Nautilus, in their fairness. I mean, that's why the ban, at least on the surface level, makes some sense. So you can definitely justify it in that sense. Gotta say though, now Ashe still open, Varus still open. They could log in the Alistar to maybe counter-engage the Nautilus to some extent. You hate it already. I don't like it either. Gotta say that one.
How serious is that?
But maybe we need to let Team Flash cook it a little bit. Either way, we don't need to eat what they are making for us. So now, what will be the lock-in for the side of Cerberus? I think Silas could be something that Yado wants to play. There was this one split where he was always playing Ari, but that's no longer meta, so he probably shuns away from that. And for Artemis, I expect a Varus here. I mean, it's one of the stronger AD carries that's still left on the table. But I mean, Artemis is a man of many faces. He can play whatever. I mean, he could still log in Caitlyn still, but he chooses for Saya and just goes for another AD carry that can make a difference here.
So the Silas into Alistar is of course one of the famous interactions, one of the best ults to steal of all time, so no surprise for that Silas is coming. It's not really a Yado champion in my memory. It's not really something you would associate with this player, and now they do have a little bit of an overload in terms of AP damage on the top side. Yes, Jax deals slightly more AD I think than AP, but it's pretty split. And Elise and Silas are pure AP.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I mean, he got changed a bit in the soft rework, right? So he deals got a good chunk of magic damage through his ultimate and through his empower. So there's definitely that. I think if you look at his damage split on like the analytics, which I'm looking up right now, it's actually 60% physical. So and the rest is a little bit of is true damage, but mostly the rest is magic damage. So yeah, 60-40 split. You could assume either way of that. We finished this draft with that one. And Yado on Silas is one thing. I think he played a little bit exactly 1 year ago. This split where he also played almost exclusively Ari, or at least almost won exclusively on Ari. He started off his split with 1 win on Silas and then never won with it again. So I'm inclined to see if it's a good thing or a bad thing for them. Gotta say though, he has a nice choice of ultimate on the enemy team, right? It's the Alistar ultimate is being there, the Dominus from the Renekton, also like the cast from Gragas are insane ultimates, and even the Chain of Corruption from Varus, right, has a good AP scaling, so he definitely has something to work with. Just one of those ultimates is not really that much of high value for him, but definitely in general, the Silas is a huge pickup here.
So, triple melee topside for the side of Cerberus. What are you thinking about this one? Because usually you see this in combination with Sejuani, where triple melee is super strong because of her passive interactions, of course, her Everfrost, but Fiora and Renekton on one team strikes me as a little bit dangerous. Definitely spicy draft. What do you make of Flash's composition?
They just need to make sure that they don't really fall early prey to these Elise ganks, because they will definitely come out. You don't pick Elise just to power farm next to the other jungler. That's something that doesn't quite work. So despite Elise scaling not being as terrible as it used to be, you still don't want to go these lines. And yeah, I just hope that the Fiora will get through the early game against the Jax. It is, I'm bullshitting, right? Oh, no, it is Fiora against Jax actually. And yeah,
It is.
that's something where Yoshino definitely can show that he can make a difference in the skill matchup. Pan is not really the kind of guy to go like carry versus carry and then win those matchups. He's more of the renowned player to really play the weak side well, or just play well on any tank. I mean, he's not a bad 1v1 champion, in 1v1 player in general. Either way of that, don't get me wrong. We go into the Rift and can see how they really played out. And I think there's an overlay missing on the broadcast side, but regardless of that, that's not our problem. Speaking of that, there it is. Yeah, finally. I mean, we had our complaints about the overlay. This doesn't mean that that we want the overlay to be gone. Just gotta take that one as well. And for Fuk1, I kind of dodged the question from you earlier. I want him to focus a bit more on Yoshino and make sure that, despite the 1v1 matchup going maybe not as easy for him, that he can help out Yoshino to really go strong to the mid game, because if Fiora doesn't, she usually falls off very hard as a pick. Not that she's scaling poorly or anything, but in the mid game team fights where she's forced to be in them, she doesn't really excel.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit scared looking at Flash's composition when I think about how they played the last game, because setups around dragons looked really rough, and now they're Fiora Renekton, which doesn't really give them all that much setup power either. There's no zoning control. Oh wow, how did that land? Not bad, Ron P, not bad. But yeah, their composition is one ranged champion with a little bit of choke control in Varus, but otherwise all of them are pretty bad at buying space. Maybe oh, there's the level 2 engage, and that's the cow, and in a lot of trouble. That Sora might die here. No, Sora walks away. So Fletch might once again be forced to play very aggressively, which seems to be their wheelhouse, which we like to see, especially after Series 1, but it's not an easy composition to execute.
I mean, I called Team Flash for a reason, right? Disrespect level 2, just flash out. That's all there really is to it. Either way, I'm making too many silly jokes. As 1OP is missing that hook at least. No chance to pull in on that one. Either way, Artemis and 1OP yet again show great prowess in this laning phase. I mean, last game they got 2v2'd. Maybe they learned from that. And we see bone plating on the side of Podin. That could also help him to prevent dying in some of those all-in kind of situations in a 2v2. With Drakthar having the first move and Fuk1 just face checks into him. That's a lot of damage onto Fuk1.
Yeah, unfortunately he's a big boy and can't really be bursted down. Now Drakthar in a weird position, but he can just E away. Yoshino, can they get on Drakthar again? E flash from Fuk is available, so they might try to... Oh, that's a good disengage once again. Drakthar doesn't have repel, so now it's gonna be interesting. Pan with a good step.
Oh, nice bailout.
Oh, Yoshino! Yoshino, there we go, another solo kill, and in the meantime, something's happening somewhere else as well. There's the 1-for-1 trait in the mid lane, something?
Yeah, there is. They tried to move up the top lane, from mid lane to top lane, and yeah, 1OP was there with the roam. He got solo killed by Jane, but Jane left the kill up to the side of Yado. I mean, we didn't really see the play, but that must have been what has happened there. As, I mean, the top side from Cerber is kind of trolling it. I mean, Drakthar being there ready for Fuk1, but he was very deep in the enemy top quadrant, so Pan couldn't really help him out there, and Pan also getting chunked up by Yoshino might have been what ultimately caused them there, as Yoshino was still healthy enough to really go for the chase, flash, launch forward to land the kill to Drakthar. Was a nice two-man counter-strike by Pan beforehand, but ultimately, wasn't enough to bail them out, and Team Flash with a good start yet again.
Yeah, and I need to talk about Yoshino, because I was so worried. He's a legend of this VCS region, or the Vietnamese region. He's one of the best top laners we've ever seen. He was up there with Zeros and Kiaya, fighting for his spot on GAM, won multiple titles. He was the carry and one of the leaders for Flash when they won their titles in 2020, and the last time we saw him, he looked dreadful, especially in lane. Only played tanks, fell behind against Coated and other players, but he's back in form. He's playing his carries, and it's so good to see. I'm so excited to have Yoshino back in this league, because top lane was always one of the positions we were iffy about in this league. We have great ADCs, we have pretty good supports and junglers, of course, but top lane, yeah, we had Kiaya and then a lot of nothing. But with Yoshino coming back in and Hasmut hopefully getting back in form soon, this top lane could be much more exciting with Enper with Hero, the newer players. So yeah, I am just so so hyped to see Flash doing well, and especially Yoshino on their side.
And Yoshino also fed himself double buffs with this play onto Drakthar, so he does have some more prowess in this laning phase to really have something against the Jax in the first few levels, where it has been looking pretty rough for him falling down quite some CS, but here's the support jungle worm out there in the middle to catch Jane. They catch him!
Oh, nicely done, Ronop here. The CC follow-up is beautiful.
Also just so much this year, but the dredge line, the auto attacks, the staggering blow from the Nautilus, the cocoon as well, and then Yano also lands his chains on top of that, so once you hit one spell, the others land automatically as well. Poor Jane on the beefy Renekton, not beefy enough to really withstand this CC and damage combination. So Cerberus, yeah, equalize the scoreboard with the 2-2, and we know equalize scoreboard tends to be in their favor as their bot lane is always up in CS.
Yeah, I mean, we see why Alistair's not really played in other regions. It's just not able to lane against anything. It's just a horrible, horrible laner. And this Nautilus has been able to win lane. Oh, we have a little bit of a clash, and this Elise might be in trouble again. Yoshino, he's looking for his opportunity. That's a W. Ooh, very nicely done. Pun dodges away from the counter stun, just walking away from Yoshino's W, but he's forced to flash, and Yoshino is just styling on them.
And I'm not quite happy with what Drakthar tried to do in the top lane. Every time he's up there, Pan has to either bail him out with his abilities or even use a summoner spell I quite know to help him. And yeah, I think Pan just hates both junglers this game, like any top laner would. And yeah, not really too fond of what Drakthar right there. I think playing out the mid lane, playing out the bot lane has been something that worked better for him this game, at least so far. As he's also running Squirtle this game, right? He's with the blue jungle item. So that's something that we have seen recently a bit more, as all the jungle items are finally somewhat balanced, I would say. The movement speed coming out of Fog of War, coming out of Brushes, definitely something that those ganking junglers especially can work around with quite well.
Yeah, and so far, Elise, we haven't seen much of her in the VCS, and now Drakthar playing back-to-back Elise games and looking pretty lost on the map, I have to say. For such a strong early game champion that's usually able to accelerate the game, invade all the time, Vayne is under a little bit of pressure, but nice follow-up with Sora, just to keep him safe. But yeah, this Elise, I'm very underwhelmed, I have to say.
Yeah, not looking good. I mean, even in the first game, with the Renekton combination where he was kind of failing the cocoons and just being too impatient to really wait for the full range, just showed that I think those VCS junglers in general don't play much Elise because they expect it to be banned, and that's unironically, I think that some mechanical issues maybe come aside, and they maybe like put a game here and there onto this champion. In solo queue, it also gets banned quite a lot, so you don't get to play much Elise. You get to play a lot more like the Wukong, like the Vaya some. Tidbits along those lines, as bot lane might just be a dive onto Sora. Hook misses though.
What did I just... What? Okay, Sora wants some of this. The flash forward, that might have been a little aggressive. As, yeah, he's Alistair, but he's level 4 Alistair, so he's still not a champion. Nice try, but in the end, that's a free kill over to Elise. Yeah, Drakthar finally finding something there. In the meantime, on the top side, we have Team Flash getting their first Herald. So Herald against a Dragon... trade with an extension of 1 extra kill on Sora. This Alistair also hasn't looked like a good champion so far in this game. Maybe he can redeem himself later.
Like, we get it, you hate Alistair, but either way, 1 OP. Also, I want to correct myself, he wasn't really missing the hook. I think it was intentional that he just uses the hook to gap close to the wall, to be there with a staggering blow, to just keep Alistair in place so Elise can easily feast on him. As Pun, Gold Flash.
He tried to predict the E, he didn't quite land the stun, but the ultimate is good enough, I think, for a kill. Yoshino has an easy job to finish this one. A beautiful Gragas play from Fuk1. In the meantime, the bot lane, we have a lot of damage. Good flash from Ronopi. He was okay. It's continuing. Sora's only level 4, he's gonna go down again. Where's Drakthar? Hello?
Yeah, Rapper, and it took like half an hour to come down. It was very, very weird. Either way, that's the kill. I gotta take it on both sides. I mean, Pan knew that Herald was just being taken, and he's still there to fall for the top gang.
Yeah,
Sora knew that Drake was just being taken, and Drakthar just goes for the weapon gang to kill him again. I mean, this whole Drake was even being taken because he died there in the first place. And yeah, Artemis also casually just off-screen put in, like, yeah, it sometimes happens in the VCS. Either way, with Herald charge
this is the VCS top lane. We know and love. Not yeah, that bullshit we saw in the first series today, where no one ever killed anything.
the first series literally put Rebel Fox to sleep. That's what it did.
It's true.
Yeah, without this first series, you wouldn't be here right now. And in the bigger picture, it's strong side Yoshino against strong side Artemis, and I'm very excited to see how this mid game really plays out because, yeah, it will be a banger, I guess, with both those two members, both star players of their team respectively, being just fed by their team.
Yeah, Yoshino funneled so much gold now with all the platings. He doesn't actually have his first item finished, so behind the item curve if you compare to Artemis, but still in a super strong position. He seems to be struggling in the neutral state of the lane, I'm gonna call it. So just the farming isn't going too great for Yoshino. It's pretty far behind in CS compared, especially if you consider that his enemy top lane has been dying quite a few times or had to evacuate the lane at least a few times. So Yoshino, maybe his farming is not quite up to snuff, but at least he's still dominating this top side for now. Team Flash needs to be careful not to overinvest into this Fiora, though, because in terms of team fighting, they probably need a little bit of backup carry from Pudden.
And that's what gets me worried for Team Flash, actually, because, I mean, they really funnel a lot into this Fiora, and she's still not confident enough to really go for this 1v1 in the long lane. I think at some point, if she's so fat, she should be able to run down the Jax, or at least be able to get the CS and then walk back out, and Yoshino isn't feeling confident in that one at all. Meanwhile, Artemis, he's fed in both plates and kills and CS, so to say. So basically winning on all sides of it, and he's very, very confident about it. As Jane is very confident to die right here, I guess. Yado taking that kill up easily, with Draktar being around, with the Cocoon landing, of course. It's just a disgusting CC chain we have seen before in the mid lane. And yeah, can't really blame Jane too much. Goes for the Dominus and
Can we
just...
get the counter kill? That's a lot of CC from the other side too. We have so many big CC chains in this game. It's very fun to watch because all these champions chained together just... It makes the game so volatile and so execution heavy that it's more kills, it's high octane gameplay. We like to see that here. I want to see the replay. Jane it looked so doomed for Jane because he was literally bouncing up and down for 5 seconds there, unable to press his ultimate, unable to flash away, just went down. Another kill to Yado. And we talked about his Silas not being in his wheelhouse too much, but he's 2-0 up. And he's up in CS against a counter matchup with the Rot of Ages already completed. So Yado is looking like one of the big carries potentially in the series to bring Cerberus back to equal game score.
And he's the better scaling champion anyway. Now he started his Office Ward of Ages already. Has 1 stack on it going. So he will brutally outscale this Renekton likely. And we just now saw Jane. I mean, poor guy. Couldn't ult at the first place. Then later on, he manages to press the Dominus. But he just dies anyway. Because even the somewhat tanky Renekton is not tanky enough to withstand the CC chain. Very unlucky for him. And on the other side, they get the kill. But they get the kill on Soa's Alistar. What can Soa's Alistar really make a difference with a bit more gold? I mean... Alistar in general is just a meatball and a stunbot, basically. I mean, as much as yeah, how do I put it? I mean, I'm a bit of a devil's advocate for Alistar as a champion, as you hate the champion so much, but I gotta agree, he's not much more than what I just now described him as. And what does he really do with 300 more gold? I mean, you really want this gold on the Varus, on the Gragas maybe even, to have like some impact in the team fights. The Alistar surely won't have it.
Yeah, I think we are going to see quite a lot of Alistar in the next patch because he got a big buff there, but on this patch it's a little confusing to see him. Look at Fuchs' damage though. Pun tries to re-engage. Here's the Alistar. There's not a lot of follow-up DPS, so they can't actually lock down the kill, but that's more time, more space for Yoshino. He's gonna get first tower of the game if he actually auto-attacks it. Yeah, there we go. That's 625 gold to Yoshino. He's in such a good position to carry the side lanes, but the rest of his team is falling too far behind. We don't have individual gold. There we actually have it. But if you look at that, Yoshino is at the top of the charts, and then 2 Cerberus players follow. So, especially if you look at Yane and Pudden, they are quite far behind their counterparts. Team fights could be quite hard to play, but maybe Fiora can carry.
And actually, what now we saw it, that's kind of surprising me, as poor Soa kind of inting it down, as the stolen Gragas ultimate kind of killing him there into the turret. The pun gap between him and Yoshino is actually bigger than the bot gap right now. It's 2k against 1.5k. It just maybe just a matter of all these turret platings in the first turret bonus gold falling for Yoshino as well as the 2 kills. And now actually Yoshino equalizing the CS gap that has been there beforehand. Right now, of course, yeah. Pun more in the position to really get more CS onto his belt, but overall, yeah, he's straight up down in CS by now. I mean, this is just Yoshino really stabilizing this lane matchup. So Yoshino definitely the strong part of the map for Team Flash, but on the other side, Artemis, of course, definitely very strong. And Fiora won't really team fight, so you would expect these next Drakes to go to the side of Cerberus yet again. Gotta say though, we have seen Flash outfight the team fights Chemtech Soul. And as I say that, yeah, they just dive pun again. Poor guy gets fallen out.
Needs to be careful. But Yado is here, and Yado, oh, Yoshino doesn't have any mana. Good flash away, he was dead to rights if he doesn't flash there. And Ron P defends a little bit too early, maybe. Tries to engage and lock down Yoshino, but they still, oh, they actually protected the tower, so that's a huge win. I think Yado is really the big question mark in this game because he's so far ahead now. And yes, the map is split between bot and top side, but the mid lane is also a huge advantage for Cerberus. And this Silas is only going to get stronger. 4 stacks on the Rod of Ages. He's only going to get tankier and get more HP, AP to work with. Great ultimates, as we talked about earlier. The Alistar makes him unkillable in late game teamfights. So I'm keeping my eyes on Yado, on this champion that's not really associated with him too much, and his performance in this game looks really strong.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. It's not just Yoshino against Artemis, it's basically Yoshino against anything else. Yado is very fat, he's brutally outscaling. Also the jungle matchup, like Drakthar, despite all these top ganks that look kind of cheesy and clowny, where he kind of ruined Pan's day a little bit as well, where he needed to bail him out a little bit. Just now, with these kills, should be around equal in gold compared to the Gragas, and that's something that's, in the overall picture, I think fine for him. And yeah, all the objectives also going the way of Cerberus, right? The first 2 Drakes going their way, the first Herald wasn't, but the second Herald definitely is, and they can maybe use that one closely before the third Drake to really get the map control and vision control going around, to net themselves a soul point already in this game. And yeah, I'm just inclined to see what Yado can really do, and also what Artemis is doing this game. He's going for this old, I think Ravenous Hydra Zaya build maybe, even though it's Gale Force Navori for him, to have like a mix of what the old Defelt Desire build was doing and what the Crit build is doing. Good burst initially, but also decent DPS.
Yeah, and Cerberus is just getting more and more control over the map. That's another turret broken in the mid lane. And the second tower already down to 20-30% HP. So next push is going to get that tower as well, opening up the map completely for Cerberus. They're in a very strong position, in my opinion. The gold lead is a little bit deceptive because so much gold is in that top lane for Flash. So if you eliminate Flash from the Yoshino from the equation, the rest of the team is probably like 5k gold ahead, and Cerberus is certainly able to stamp their authority on this map.
Ah, you didn't misspeak. I mean, calling Yoshino Team Flash kind of makes sense because he basically is the team right now. It's kind of there's their only hope, aside from maybe like a super insane 5-man explosive cast plus barrel roll combination. Could be something to really chunk them out, but that's of course just a matter of fantasies. As Pan gets stove again. Can he live?
I'm so sorry for Pun. There's just nothing he can do. Fook actually with a super impressive game as well. A little bit quieter because he doesn't get the kills, but he's setting up Yoshino for success over and over again. 0-0-5, the perfect support for his top laner. And honestly, yes, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not really changing too much about the whole map. But on the other hand, Cerberus is not really achieving anything on the other side either. So it's 3 kills for Flash, and their Fiora is now 4-0, 2 items ready. So at some point, she's going to be able to break through Pun's defensive alone. And once that happens, you control the other side to play defensively on the other side of the map and just let Yoshino do his thing. And we might actually approach that state of affairs now.
That's the thing, like, will there ever be a point where Yoshino is actually able to solo kill Pan under the turret? Because that's what he basically needs to do to break open the game. Otherwise, the top lane doesn't matter meme kind of holds true in this game, as Fook is putting a lot of effort to really get Yoshino ahead, and for now, it doesn't seem that worthwhile, because always it's still Yoshino needing assistance to really get the kill going, and if he needs that one, then it's not really worth to play around him, as Cerberus slowly but surely gets these small objective wins with getting the Drake, getting the Herald, getting the turret pushes. Either way, just now this TP from Yado maybe not the most efficient one, as he was just catching the wave and not really getting anything more on the way out. This was maybe one of the smaller victories for the side of Team Flash, even I would say, as Drakthar can secure this Scuttle Crab. Will of course be nice for a potential Drake fight, in which I would of course very much favor Cerberus right now, the Fiora not really being a good team fighter, and she would definitely be still a more squishy target to really burst down. And in general, I think it will be very hard to kill Yado in this game at all. Like, he has Sona's Hourglass, he has almost stacked up War, and if you don't like quickly kill a Silas and don't outrange him with like Varus, I think Paladin is the one that would have to kill Yado. I think Yado can just mesh very, very well with those melee champions, use the Kingslayer over and over again, and just heal himself back up while killing everyone else.
Yeah, and especially with the Alistar ultimate available. Remember, his Alistar ultimate scales with his level, and he is a Rod of Ages. So once that comes in, and that's one more stack away, and he gets to level 16, he's going to be unkillable for 7 seconds, and he can wreak havoc for all those seconds. It's gonna be a rough time. They might have to just throw the cask at him to defend against his advances. But in the meantime, Cerberus just getting incremental advantages, another dragon in their pocket. Cloud Soul sounds really nice to disengage against Flash if they ever fall into a back situation or a bad situation, or Pun has to run away from Yoshino, so that's another safety net. I can't really see Flash winning this map. They're holding on to their top lane lead, but they're not really making big steps towards a victory. What is their win condition here, Quincy?
Yoshino's the win condition, and I gotta say, like, that's the contrast to last game. But last game, they were also like staring down a Chemtech Soul, and it was looking pretty dire, but not as dire because they still had this very easy to play, straightforward engage with the Annie, with the Vi, with Notus. And this game, while they have a Fat Furior on the side lane, they don't have this straight up easy engage. I mean, sure, they have the Alistar, but I mean, if he engages, I mean, there's still Yardo potentially stealing his ultimate, being a Giga tanky Silas that can still kill you. They have the bot lane not being in their favor this game. It's not really looking too good for them, and yeah. While the Gragas can still like make some fancy plays, create some smoke and mirror situations, in the overall 4-man squad it's looking very heavily Cerberus favored, and that's why I think it will be very hard for Flash to fight really anything this game. Speaking of Yardo, I think he just now stole the Alistar ultimate. This might just be one argument to go even heavier into the AP department, because he will be tanky with the Alistar ultimate anyway. He doesn't even need the Solus Hourglass, the Watt stack so much. As just now, he kind of burns the ultimate for nothing. That's kind of sad to see. Either way, Yardo overall having a great game.
Yeah, there's nothing really urgent on the map happening, so he can kind of just toy with them. 1v3 situation there, and he just comfortably walks away, just tanking one of Fook's ultimates. And both teams seem to have settled down into this stare-down situation on the map, where Yoshino is definitely going to win bot side, but Cerberus is going to win the rest of the game on the other side of the map. So it's a race. 4 objectives on either side. Fook one needs to be kept very good E-timing. That was scary. He could have died. But they still want the engage. Rondo P is on Jane, and Jane needs to flash away to Cerberus. Really wants to make their move. There's Yardo. He goes, and he doesn't have the Alistar ult. He goes very low. Can put and execute him. There's the stopwatch. Artemis is trying to go in there as well. And Jane. Oh, Fook one. What an execution. Oh,
what a Silas!
Somehow, though. What is going on? It's a 1-for-1 in the end. That's actually a big win for Flash. What's happening in bot lane? Can Yoshino profit? Can he buy time, and can he get another tower? I think he's trying to dive. Potentially. He's under turret. Nope. He's not actually trying to dive Pun.
And Pun, I think, could at least kill the wave before going down, so it wouldn't be a huge turret push by the side of Yoshino. But we see just now Pun very much struggling so far, and Fook 1 surviving with about as much HP as the number in his name suggested, because it was just like 1 HP. And Yardo on the Silas kind of into this play, but still surviving. But here we see Baron started by Cerberus, TP coming out. They really want to rush this down.
Fook is too late. Fook is too late. Oh, they secure the Baron, but can Flash chase them down? There's Pun isolated, but in the meantime, Fook is already dead. Now the counter attack from Cerberus. They get the stun on Druktha. Druktha, where's Druktha? Is he still here? Ah, there he comes down again, but that's now Artemis time. Artemis kiting for his life. He goes down in the end. It's a mess on the map, and Yardo wasn't here, but Cerberus still walk away with the victory in team fight and the Baron.
Pun once more. Yoshino low on mana. I think they want to chase this actually with the counter strike, and Leap being up. Pun will surely go down. It was already a winning play for side of Cerberus. It's 4-for-2 now on the map, and they got the Baron. So at the end of the day, Cerberus very much happy with that play. They just rushed on the Baron. Fukon is a bit too late, and with the TPs coming out, yeah, it was something that they were confident in forcing. They lose Artemis, but they get a very huge prize as a consolation for that one, and they get the Baron. They get so many kills, and they will have this Baron to translate it into this potential Cloud Soul. I think it will be the Cloud Soul. The overlay is kind of boggling with me. I think they do the Drakes manually and forgot one or something. Either way, it will be a potential Cloud Soul for them, and you're one of the advocates for Cloud Soul being very, very strong, so yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I actually want to focus on something else here, because to me it's fascinating how the Cerberus, we define them as this team fighting team, right? Playing around their very strict setup with front to back line, team fighting, with super strong AD carry. But in this game they look more like the old GUM. A lot of individual agency, everyone has their own engage sense, their own playmaking ability. Cerberus, Yardo actually on the biggest playmaker with the Silas potentially, and everyone just playing for themselves. This is what GUM always did to win the titles, and it's very fascinating to see these players. They usually play such a structured match, such a well-coordinated team fight approach, play entirely different style and succeed at it.
Yeah, and this time, yeah, of course, the Cloud Soul being up shortly, but here, Pan being the living bait, basically, just buying some time with the Grandmaster at arms being there. In the 3-1, of course, he dies, but to what cost? I mean, Cerberus doesn't look for the soul, they look for the game right now. This is absolutely baffling. They are pushing 3 members down the inhibitor now, get the inhibitor now at least, force some recoils on the other side, and with that on the backtrack, they likely just go for the soul, but I don't think that Flash will give it up for free. They will at least try to get a counter inhibitor, because Yoshino and Fukuan haven't based at all. Yado is 1v2ing them. He could actually win this 1v2, I think, if he kills Fukuan quickly.
Just ignoring him, but look at Yoshino. Yoshino is trying to get the kill. He deals so much damage. One more Q. Oh, very nicely done from Yado. Yado is completely running circles around them. Very nice timing there. Yado with the re-engage, and now Fuku in a lot of trouble. Tries to slow him down, but I think Yado with one more E should be able to get this one. Yeah, that zone is not going to help.
Very awkward death timer as well for Fukuan. I mean, you dragged us on the Drake anyway, so it probably wouldn't have mattered, but this just now will mean the soul for Cerberus. Gotta see on the bigger picture, Cerberus kind of playing with fire right there, also dropping an inhibitor on their side. I think this is way too much risk. There's so much that just could go wrong that should not be possible to even be in position to go wrong, and with that, it will be the soul for them. Yeah, we see the soul now on their markings, despite the overlay kind of making a fool of us. Either way, it's one inhib on each side. It is the inhib far away from Baron for the side of Team Flash though, and Baron will be the next big thing again. So I think on those inhib trades in general, it favors Cerberus yet again.
Yeah, but I am impressed with this sense that Team Flash, their exercise, just abandoning their own base because they knew they couldn't really defend against the advances of Cerberus with Baron buff. So they just called for the top side. They got a kill, they got an inhibitor, and they got some objective shutdowns too. So a little bit of money over to all of the members. I actually thought this was quite an imaginative approach there, not just bleeding out. They took matters into their own hands. It might not be enough to come back, but it's at least something. And I think this team has exhibited a lot of this kind of playstyle. They have a very active team. Jane under a little of pressure, but has Yada overchased. Yada's down. That's a huge kill, and Cerberus might have just overstayed their welcome. Where's Elise coming down? That TP is dangerous. Pun.
Yes.
Between towers, and Puddin is now able to chase him down. Can Pun run away? Yeah, he's very quick. He does have the Cloud Soul.
They need to cover the flank for Yoshino.
Oh no, what is happening? Yoshino on the other side, and that's just the support you're chasing down. Yes, you get the kill, but the fight is lost for your team. Pun with 2 kills, and Yoshino doesn't even get the kill on Ronopi. Flash lost in coordination. That's a triple kill for the super far behind enemy top laner, and that might have been the last nail in the coffin they needed.
It probably was, but I don't want to congratulate Cerberus there, because that was very, very sloppily played, very much risky execution on their side. That TP from Pan, man, just into the back line of both Jane and Puddin. I mean, he realized he could get kited out there, so he needed his help from his team to really cover that one. And yeah, Yoshino could flank 1OP, probably easily kill him, but he doesn't want to burn his grand challenge onto a support of all things, so he was able to get bailed out there by 1OP. 1OP just existing there was enough to make this a winning play for Cerberus. As on the other side, Yoshino had to watch with Pan getting a triple kill before dying, so it was a winning play for them, but way too sloppy. I mean, Yado also dying with both Flash and the Stolen Dominus up should never happen in any sort of shape or form with the Silas he's currently in. I mean, he's not that squishy, he shouldn't get one shot by anything and be surprised by that, so that definitely something that they need to work on, despite them likely winning this game. And I gotta say, don't call the game over before it is over. I mean, last game they lost with a Chem Soul, so Team Flash bringing in some chaos is definitely something that they can work with. And I mean, this inhibitor trade also, I want to applaud them for that. That was a good thing, because while on paper it's the worst inhib, them being so far down and still trading on paper even objectives is something that speaks in their favor.
And Elder only 3 minutes away, that's always a win condition. Regardless how far behind you are, if you steal Elder and get the team fight, could always go, and then suddenly Flash is 2-1. Oh, Yoshino. He's getting caught by Yado, but who's really catching whom here? I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. A little bit of a back and forth. But in the meantime, Cerberus just calls the Baron. Flash is so far away, they have no control over the vision, no control over their own jungle, so this Baron is gonna be a free pickup for Cerberus.
Yeah, that's a formality. I mean, we just now saw Fukuan in the mid lane, and so did Cerberus. Yado was even close to really whip his chains around him to really secure him off, at least, just prevent Fukuan from being anywhere close to it. With the inhibitor, of course, Baron an easy pickup, but this could just be a dive in the pitch, and this could be the game right now. Jane just died.
And Silas is in there. He does have the Alistair ultimate. Look at him. He can't take any damage. And he gets another kill on the Varus, and that should be game as Sora is on the other side. But Fook and Sora don't have the damage. Ronopi is still alive. No, he goes down eventually. Fook actually putting in some work, and Yoshino 1v3. Can he find anything here? He's super fat, but he's still trying to play Fiora into two super strong late game champions on the other side. That's the last approach from Yoshino. He's walking down. He's level 16. He doesn't have his ultimate available, but does he find the vitals on Pun?
He can't.
He's under tower.
Should not be possible. He can only repost one spell. He can't repost both the Blade Caller and the Counter Strike, so it should not be possible for him to play. Repost is down, Featherstorm there, and yeah, for Artemis, just an easy kill. Rips him off with the Blade Caller, and Artemis wins the star matchup against Yoshino, both literally and figuratively in the last second of the game, to even the series out to a 1-1 Cerberus strike back.
Action-packed second game, so many kills, 23 to 14 kills. So we have finally arrived at week 2 of VCS. Forget about the first series, that never happened. We were in the LCK because it was too early for the players to play, but now we're finally alive with so many kills back and forth and an action-packed series. I have no idea who's going to win because both of these teams showed so many good, but also so many sloppy things in this game and the game before.
Yeah, definitely something that we can mention on this end as we get now a short look out onto the post-game start screen where we see how the goal really develops. A little bit of a ups and down at the first more than 20-minute mark, and then Cerberus just exploded. I think it was around the third break where they really just slapped the scaling to the face of Team Flash basically, with Yano Silas really excelling and them just getting also this sudden start of the Baron was something that was maybe surprising Team Flash to some extent, I gotta say. And Flash tried to play around Yoshino. To some extent it worked, but ultimately it just showed top lane doesn't matter as much as bot lane in general. And with mid lane also being in favor of Cerberus, it was no way for Flash to win it. I mean, 0 Drakes, 0 Barons. I mean, just some turrets they took. Actually, the stats look a bit worse than it actually was because Flash held on quite long, I gotta say. But at the end of the day, Cerberus was a better team.
Yeah, and maybe also a little bit of the team composition coming into play. I feel like Flash overdid it in the draft with these spicy compositions. It was too hard to play. The Renekton never really got off to a good start. He was always behind. Didn't really have any impact, especially if you compare him to the Silas that ran over the team fights. Renekton really on the back foot for the whole game. So I would like to see them play a little bit more an easier composition. Like they did in game 1, yes, where they walked away with the victory, right? So it's still possible.
Yeah, arguably what won them the game even, and maybe also don't leave open Elise. I think Elise is just super strong. Draktar also had some iffy plays, but overall it showed, I mean, that the champion definitely can deal quite some damage. And let's wait and see what will be their solution, their approach at least, for the third game as we go into a short 10-minute break and we see each other after that one.
Awake to my voice and hear the call within. Embrace the fear inside. Surrender your mind to mine again.
And we're back with game 3 and with draft 3 already. So we instantly jump in. We do not care about our timer at all. And yeah, I'm still Quincy, you're still Uwe. Here we go to draft.
Yep, indeed. We're back on blue side for Flash, and they are back to their first pick Vi, it seems. It worked to a T in game 1, so why not do it again? We might actually end up with another Vi against Elise matchup.
Yeah, might just be the case with Elise still being left on the table. Also, currently I'm still baffled by the fact that Ash gets neither picked nor banned in either of those 2 games so far, so that's kind of a surprise. And maybe even the welcome one, I don't quite know, because I mean, just seeing different champions is not a bad idea in general, but Elise also tends to be ignored, I guess, as the Wukong gets locked in by Draktar, and maybe that's just a call. Enemies won't pick Elise anymore. We feel that Wukong will just provide equal or better value, even as Draktar didn't look too comfortable on the Elise in general. We have seen some mechanical errors by him. That might just be the case because Elise just gets banned so often, as Lucian Army gets rolled up by the side of the Flash, and that's of course a different shape and form for them, as Pollen and Sora haven't looked like the carry bot lane in general. This time, however, they are on Lucian Army, so now we have to expect a lot from them.
Yeah, interesting that we see the Lucian Army kind of out of nowhere, really. We might actually end up with another Nautilus Zarya on the side of Cerberus. We know Artemis. Okay, Artemis Draven would be a new one. I'm kind of expecting him to change to Zarya.
Is he even a Draven player? Like, I've seen
Not
many
really.
ADCs for him.
Okay, here we go.
Maybe now he is. Maybe he just became one and just decided in the moment that Draven is the way to go. Either way, I'm of course all excited for it because Lucian Army and any Draven lane ever are very volatile bot lanes. So I mean, it usually just comes down to, can the Nautilus Draven bot lane file all in or can't they? Usually, I think the first few levels should be quite Draven favorite as of now, as Lucian Army got nerfed quite a bit, especially in the early stage of the game, with now going first strike and AoE. It's more of a bot lane that spikes in the mid game and scales quite fine into the late game, but of course compared to a Draven, a Lucian alone would never win the DPS check. With Nami together, he maybe would be able to. That just remains to be seen to some extent how these will play out, as Cerberus actually being the team that bans away the Silas is what surprises me to some extent, as they could log it in on R4, but either way, they don't want any of that.
Yeah, indeed. Quite confusing drafting. I am a fan of Ronopi on Nautilus because he looked incredible in the last game. I actually think we didn't give him enough credit for all the angles he found and all the good engages, and he was on the map all the time in the top dive everywhere. So I'm quite excited to see him on the Nautilus again. He has always been one of the best engaged players. Back in 2018, when he played together with a man on stage right now, and they won their titles together in EVOS, he was already a good engaged player. So 5 years later, still one of the best. Always exciting to see, and he might be able to create a lot of pressure once again.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, but also not surprised by what Cerberus is doing. They just lock in Yado and Victor, which is something that I welcome to see. Other than that, of course, they just spare the R5 counter pick, potentially just for Pan, who's usually just the weak side king, and with Draven being locked in already for them, I think that's not an unlikely option. And Cassidy would be interesting, because on one side, it's an almost guaranteed late game victory at level 16, unless you are like brutally obliterated by the enemy team and lose Dragon Soul and everything. Other than that, I think for Team Flash, it's very, very risky. I mean, they are a good quality team from what we've seen, but they haven't really shown much laning prowess, and if Jane is put on Kassadin and Yado can punish that to some extent, on the Victor it will be very hard. It's a risky pick for both teams, basically.
Yeah, it's very much against the style they've been showing us for the whole split so far. Okay, it's only 2 series and only 4 games so far, but still, they've been very active, very proactive with the engages and so on, so Kassadin really not fitting into that style of play. I'm also concerned for Kassadin in team fights because there's so much CC to stop him. But let's see what Jane can do into Yado's Victor. Instalock on the Jax. First Yoshino Jax, so I'm not entirely sure how Yoshino Jax is going to look like.
And Gragas would still be open for the top lane as a counter pick. Olaf also open as also a counter pick, because the Olaf can just ignore the counter strike around the level 6 mark with this Ragnarok. And the new Ragnarok works like this: as long as the Olaf can keep hitting, he can keep being in Ragnarok. And the Olaf hits really hard when he is in Ragnarok. So the Jax Olaf matchup is very much Olaf favored by now. And this will be locked in by the side of Pan. And that's interesting, because I think both teams went with insane risks here. On the side of Team Flash, not much team fighting prowess, but very strong side lane lane powers with Kassadin and Jax. Good scaling, of course, on their side. But even if they scale, 5v5 not really the way to go for them. And on the side of Cerberus, they have a Draven on the one side, but on the other side, they have Pan on the carry chip and right now locked in R5 as a counter to Yoshino. That is something that either works very, very well or very, very poorly.
This is quite a draft from the side of Cerberus. The first Olaf of our split, and we've seen a lot of Olaf in LEC. It has risen to top priority. A lot of games from Broken Blade, of course, Adam, but even I think Chasey played a game for it, and Photon, I believe, as well. So it's over in Europe. It's very popular.
True.
Not entirely sure if it fits Pun. Pun doesn't really strike me as a player that goes super aggressively and just walks down the enemy targets, but let's see what they can do. Their composition is once again not really Cerberus' style, but it seems like they've been practicing some of the old GAM compositions where there's a lot more individual agency, and to be fair to them, they just won the last game with a similar style.
And gotta say, like, both teams not really playing their previous style, at least in this game, as we load onto the Rift and see for ourselves how to really play out for these teams. Yeah, I mean, the Olaf thing, kind of for Pan, I think it's a style shift, but on the other hand, he also played a lot of Mundo before, and which is considering the running down part, is a bit similar to what Olaf does, actually. Of course, the stat profile a bit different in general, but I mean, also, one of those picks he could have pulled out against the Jax, but he wanted the Olaf, he got the Olaf, could have picked Fiora if he was as ballsy as Yoshino in game 2, but we all saw how that one went down as we load into the game and can see for ourselves how Cerberus is really playing it out. Just want your opinion on this. Who do you really favor after this draft?
Yeah,
and from what we've seen in the first two games.
I can't really believe in Flash's draft. I don't think they have the coordination to make this work.
Whoa!
How did that hit? That is insane. Put him step to the side, but of course, lollipopping, being strong there for Ronopi. For some reason, that Q extended to the side. Wow, I would be so salty if I was Puddin. That was a perfect sidestep, but he was still grabbed, and now his flash is down. That is gonna be a prime target for Druktha and maybe even Yado for a first early game dive. Something that G2 has been doing every game they play Draven, and I expect Cerberus to double down into the bot lane, give Artemis his first kill, and then run from there.
I mean, you kind of answered your own question, but I can explain to the viewer. I mean, some probably don't know what lollipopping is. So the projectile initially seems like a spear and acts like a spear, but then it's more like a hammer shark, basically. So it just extends all the way to the sides, and it can basically hits you even if you sidestep it perfectly. That's what happened just now to the side of Podane when he tried to sidestep one of his hook. I mean, he did a decent job of it, but we need to ask the question, why is he there in the first place, of course? And was just a nice wraparound invade for the side of Cerberus? Well, one early flash down from Lucian means less early aggression from the side of the Lucian and early lane control for the Draven lane from Artemis as expected.
Yeah, and this is now very dangerous. Getting caught there. So Ignite is down. Artemis can't really keep up, so maybe a little bit of a waste of the Ignite. But Sora, what are you doing? Artemis, what are you doing too? Okay, we are going crazy in the bot lane.
Yeah, we are indeed going crazy in the bot lane, as this just now played out to be quite nice for the Draven lane already. Didn't get a single kill for it, Phil. And also Artemis took quite some turret damage, so it's not as favorable as it initially looks like, but still, of course, very rough start for the bot lane from Team Flash. Did they miss XP? I'm not quite sure. Here we see again how it played out. Hook lands, Ignite is also already down, and a lot of damage on both Podin and Sora, who tries to body block something that he doesn't need to. Artemis... Did he auto-attack the turret? He didn't, right? It was still fine played. He flashed, but then he couldn't auto-attack because the auto-attack timer wasn't ready yet.
Exactly, yeah. He thought he was late game Draven with attack speed, and then he still had to wait for his attack to actually come up, so the flash looked very clunky. Also, his movement when he chased down didn't look like a Draven main, so it's still some questions about the Artemis Draven. I haven't seen it before, I think. I was very surprised in draft, so... I don't want to condemn him immediately, but Ronopi might have overstayed his welcome, but of course he can spider Nort away. First gank attempt from Fuguan doesn't really find its mark, as Druktha is also on the bot side. Everything is centered around this Draven lane, and that's what we expect, right? That's just Draven's identity. Everyone knows it's gonna be bot lane action, and everyone is down here.
And they even sent Fuguan just to help with the push here. That's just something that doesn't really strike me as something where I would be confident in the bot lane of Team Flash in general that they need this kind of help in this current game state. already against them. As we see in the mid lane, Yado having some fun against the Kassadin, which is something we don't quite expect here. But Pan and Yoshino also having a good one in top lane. I think
Who's
this should
winning?
be won by. I think this should be won by Olaf. If both are low, Olaf gets just so much more stats. Gotta say, so pre-6, the counter strike plays a huge part because Olaf cannot really parry it anymore, or not yet, so to say. I think it should be won by Olaf usually.
Yeah, and Dronopi, he channeling his inner palette, just staying in lane forever and almost going down for his mistakes there. Now, a little bit of lane control over to Pandan and Sora for no real reason. A little bit of an overstay for Dronopi, but he should be fine once he's back in lane. That's Ignite Burn from Puddin, so potentially stronger trading for the side of Cerberus if they find another mark, another engage. Puddin's flash is coming up, though. They have to be diligent with the timing, because of course it was down very early in the game. Let's see if there's another big trade attempt from either side of the bot lanes.
And currently in the top lane we see Pan having good lane control and wave control over the side of the Jax, which is of course to be expected. And yeah, I just now mentioned it, right? The Jax against Olaf, pre-6 can still have some outplay potential with the counter strike, but later on it gets so much worse for the Jax. And we just now saw a close 1v1 standoff between those. I think that was something where I think Yoshino would still win it, because Jax in the first 3 levels can actually make quite good work against the Olaf, and with the flash he can outplay something that the Ghost Olaf would be just way too telegraphed for and couldn't really outplay. So that's why Pan didn't really go further into that one. As in the mid lane we see Yado having a small CS against the Kassadin. Range with his melee pre-6 it's pretty normal, but Kassadin of course with his magic shield is in general kind of fine against these magic damage dealers like the Victor. That's why he was picked into it. He can still, even has an experience lead against him already, as we just now see. So he's not getting bullied too far down in this lane.
Yeah, let me ask you a bit about the rune choices here of the two mid laners that strike me as a little peculiar. We don't have the first strike on the ranged champion ranged into melee. I would have expected the first strike there to get a little bit more gold, but instead he goes super safe, fleet footwork, and on the other side we have Spellbook for Kassadin.
With Spellbook, I can just say let him cook. I'm not quite sure which rune Kassadin really needs, so you might as well go Spellbook to have like a more free choice of summoner spells, so to say. And about Fleet Footwork on Victor, I really dislike it. I mean, why would he need Fleet Footwork against a Kassadin who can't bully him whatsoever? First strike would be so good to generate some extra gold, some extra damage even. I would rather even let him see him go Electrocute or something instead of Fleet Footwork.
Right?
Yeah. Or Phase Rush, just anything with some decent utility. There's so many good options either way. There's no coming out. Sora being ignited down, and this is Kushinami. He should go down. Is it a catch for Artemis? It is! First blood for Artemis. And he can start off his item build here, right? I'm not quite sure which item build he will go, but Lethal Tempo to me inclines that he won't go any lethality shenanigans. He will just go a standard crit item build, like with the Essence here as the first item, and then transition it to one of the Noon Quiver mythic items, and then likely Navori or Infinity Edge, whichever he prefers. I'm not quite sure which one is better.
Yeah, the Essence Reaver is so devastating early in the lane. That's exactly what you want. One kill early on. That's a 700 gold kill for the side of Artemis. First Blood plus 313 gold in his passive stack. Just not good enough, the defense there. Sora instantly caught out, and Dragtha doesn't even really have to do anything. The mid laner even came down, and Yada roaming to the bot lane. But in the end, it was really just Ronopi setting his ADC up for success. They could have potentially just 2v2'd this kill, and now they definitely can, with Artemis picking up his first item shortly. So that bot lane situation is not getting any better for Sora and Puddin.
Yeah, and I want to know what the approach from Cerberus really is here, because we just now see Ragnarok being forced by Yoshino, which is very smart of him. Ragnarok now down, and not really much of a fight. This is a small win for Yoshino, at least I would say, as he gets to attack this wave anyway and just freely farm next to the Olaf, which in general, of course, is not something favorable to him. In general, you would expect Jax to be the better champion in this particular state against the Olaf, but it's the mini rework Olaf in a lane where he gets a lot of resources. He doesn't fall off quite as quickly, and he's definitely very strong at 3 or 4 items still. So yeah. I just wonder what the approach from Cerberus is in general, because do they feel pressured by the Kassadin scaling, or are they just like fine because they are sure that Olaf will still beat Jax in the side lane and could potentially beat anyone in the side lane really, and Victor just playing the team fights, but Pond is getting caught.
Oh, but Draktha wants another go, and Ronopi is here as well. Somehow, Ronopi is everywhere. That's the first kill for Draktha, and Fukwon is in no man's land. Ronopi is just walking next to him. He wants an assist.
Oh.
Oh, come on. The auto attack was not necessary. He could have given that over to Draktha. But to be fair, Ronopi showed up. He made his presence felt, and that's 2 kills over for Cerberus. Such an impressive series from this veteran support player. We had our doubts about him, especially. I was questioning if he was still on VCS level in terms of mechanics, but his game sense, his macro sense is immaculate. And Yoshino, just with a little bit of an overstep, he flashes on there, and they do execute pun. It takes a little too much time though, and of course that's a level 6 Wukong. Too much power.
Yeah, the point where he gets really strong, and he definitely gets strong. And with Ronopi, it's a bit like when you start to play League, you complain about kill steals, and players tell you, yeah, kill stealing actually doesn't matter. And now that you get even more game knowledge, you realize kill stealing definitely matters. Yeah, Ronopi doesn't want that kill as much as Draktha definitely was. And either way, that play was only happening because Yoshino earlier on forced out the Ragnarok. Otherwise, the Counter-Strike wouldn't have stunned him, and they wouldn't even kill Pun in this situation. So at the end of the day, 2 for 1 for Cerberus. They can definitely live with that. And I still haven't seen my question being answered so much by the teams here. I really wonder, how the scaling really plays out and how Cerberus thinks it will go. Because, it's a Kassadin on the one side, but you still have a good side laner on your own side, and the Victor to really control these team fights. And the Draven, which might still be fine against the Lucian army in the later on, as Draven, being especially playing from ahead, should definitely win those DPS checks.
Yeah, and I'm super interested if we get in a more even state. No time for that. Oh, the follow-up is beautiful from Sora. Very good setup from Fook and Sora working together. Perfect bubble. That's an easy kill from on Artemis. He had flash, but no opportunity to use that summoner spell, and that's putting him quite far down now. So
oh yeah, Jane gets baited.
Jane
gets baited.
Oh, he's dead.
Rift walks offensively. Draktha just lurking around the corner, not being in vision. Uses the Cyclone to get the CC going, and then, yeah. The Death Ray and the Chaos Storm enough to finish him off. Yado with a kill, a takedown to the Victor, plus 25. He maybe saves. While we see Pun getting a plating in the top lane, really dominating this Olaf vs Jax matchup as expected. Here we see bot lane again, Vault Breaker onto one, Cease and Desist onto the other, combined with the bubble, and yeah, no way for Artemis to do really anything about it. He could flash defensively to pull Vi back into it, but he doesn't really want to do that because that would just maybe even kill his support with him too, as he doesn't have the immediate chance to peel him out, as here we see the mid lane overreach. And with that, overall, yeah, they take down Artemis once to really reset the elevation stacks, which is a good thing for the side of Team Flash, but they still lose this mid lane over chase kill on the side of Kassadin, so Yado gets to be strong earlier than he otherwise would be.
It's a beautiful punish, something a few years ago we might have not seen so often in the VCS, but it's very good matchup knowledge, it's very good communication between the two players, where Yado is just telling Draktha, wait, 1 more second, he's gonna overextend, he wants me to kill me. Then they instantly punish him. Very nice to see. Just good coordination between those two players, and Cerberus off to a pretty big lead. The game felt pretty close for the most part, but now they're up to almost 2.5k.
They are, and they also really much like their lane matchups here, aside from the mid lane one, probably, as they locked in the Victor pretty early for the side of Yado, and the Drake now spawning in a few seconds. Fukwon is in a position to make something about it, but so is the other squad on the side of Cerberus, and they will now abuse the advantage, really go for the map control, clear out this control load maybe, or just looks like they won't be, and as soon as Artemis has caught out this bot wave, I would assume them to make a play towards this Drake, but Artemis wants to shop first, get the reset going. He probably has a lot of gold to spend, as he hasn't reset it in a while, I think, aside from the forced reset that was coming out when Fukwon was killing him. And here we see the top lane one. I'm willing to see, I think Olaf should win this hard.
Olaf is in a good position. Why did Yoshino even try that? That seemed completely irresponsible for him. After 1 second, you could already tell that Olaf would slam him, and Yoshino looking a bit tilted there, or maybe just not experienced enough against the new Olaf. It's quite different now with the shield coming in to block initial damage. But yeah, this was just foolishness.
Yeah, I mean, you look easily to it in this match. There's no really running away from it. You only have to flee in the offensive direction. So maybe he looked tilted, but he just tried his best to really deal as much damage as possible. Either way than that, he tried to counter-strike a Ragnar working Olaf. That just
Yeah,
doesn't work at all. It looks a bit foolish, I gotta agree. And that's why you pick Olaf into Jax, right? It's not playable for the Jax, and it won't get better in this game. Despite Jax, we all talk about it, how Jax is a good late game champion, how Olaf is not a good late game champion. But in this current state, where Jax versus Olaf is played top lane, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and the Olaf is one more champion that Kassadin has to be careful about in the late game, because he's not going to get bursted down, and Olaf might be able to just put a lot of damage on the Kassadin. I don't think this is actually that great for the late game Kassadin game, because there's so much to see, so much instant counter damage as well, so he has to play very carefully, and we all know the damage potential of Kassadin level 16. But this is one where he really has to put in his best performance in this best ever Kassadin game to carry this one home for Team Flash.
Yeah, not really much magic resistances built up on the side of Cerberus, but probably it doesn't really matter as much. I mean, he won't really focus on the Wukong, the Olaf, or the Nautilus. His best bet is likely to just one-shot Artemis at the start of a fight or something on the side of Jane, but this will also be very hard. I think at some point Artemis, I would assume to go Sheepo just for that reason alone, to really have some mitigating, to at least not get insta-gipped by the Kassadin, and as soon as he survives for 2 seconds, he just has insane lifesteal, insane damage. He will likely just play out the fights like this and will be fine in the long run. So yeah, I agree. It's not an easy Kassadin game to play in general, and yeah, despite 2 late game monsters on the side of Flash, not an easy game to play in general. I mean, the 5v5ing is just not there for them. We mentioned it in draft, Kassadin just now finishing his Word of Ages, having 1 stack on it, so it will be around the 24-minute mark where he will just get his free level, and here we see Draktar maybe will move towards his mid lane. It's just a bot lane up for the taking if they will land and engage, but Draktar for now chooses against it and just goes for the Scuttle Crab instead. Currently, a little bit of a lull state for this game as the Rift Herald hasn't spawned yet, but if it spawns, likely for Cerberus up to get, they are 3,000 gold ahead right now.
Putin was 1 step away from death there. If he steps 1 step closer to the engage, he's probably locked down and goes down, but plays it safe. Just a little bit of wave clear now from Team Flash, and as he said, Cerberus is quite far ahead, so they have control of both sides of the jungle. They can force back the Flash members, and Flash needs to scramble. They need to somehow stabilize, buy time for Jane to scale, even buy time for Putin and Yoshino to scale. So what are they comfortable to give up? How many dragons, how many Rift Heralds can they give up to still have a chance in this game?
I mean, they probably don't care all too much about the Rift Herald, I gotta say. I mean, it's just probably one turret push where they might just lose the mid tier 1, which is something that of course hurts very much, especially with the Kassadin, where you at some point want to contest these tracks and have like a way in, and Kassadin not really the champion that can generate a lot of priority early on in this game, so it will definitely hurt to drop this. But they lose this mid tier 1 turret without even the Herald being used, so it will be a very painful charge likely towards an inner turret, or they will use it in the bot lane to really crack this outer one. At the end of the day, the Rift Herald wasn't even up to contest for them. They will likely also have to drop at least 1 more Drake, because Cerberus will just be too strong even in 2 minutes of time. And I think the best bet for Team Flash is to just scale next to them as good as possible. Just don't get picked off and get this Kassadin to a later stage of the game, where you will then, just now need to consolate that you give away 1 Drake and probably 1 turret that will die to the Rift Herald push. Other than that, I think that in then 6 minutes, Cerberus will likely force you to play 1 Baron or the Soul, and that's where it really gets grindy, as a Kassadin will then not have level 16 yet, but still will probably need to teamfight in some capacity. By that time though, Jax may be on 2 items. It could be something where Team Flash just finds an opening. I am doubtful about that though.
Yeah, and in terms of setup for the whole split and studying this new team, this is really the first game where they've lost early game quite heavily. Of all the 5 games they've played, they've been in good positions in almost all of them. So now we get to see a new situation for this team, for these set of players. They've only played against very good teams, Gum and Cerberus, and they're 1-3 in game score, but they've still looked impressive. This is one of the games where they look more like the bottom team they are expected to be. Maybe they can bring it back and actually show us a new kind of strength. So far, it's just slowly slipping out of their hands, and all the members of Cerberus' side get stronger and stronger. Take a look at the Yado. He has completed his cull, he is salted now, he's on he's won 1.5 items, almost 2 items, and just slowly scaling up to be the teamfight man as we know him. for.
Outwee actually picked a color on Victor and just completed it without punishment, but it's something you can only do against Kassadin of all things.
Yeah.
And I spoke about like them scaling next to servers and then just hoping for a soul fight. I don't think Madonna can even sit back and farm next to them. I mean, we just not see the go to the extending just by servers existing next to them, with Kulls being cashed in, Draven getting adoration stacks. If Artemis gets a cash in, it will be even more disgusting than it already is. And the more I look at this game, the more I start to hate this draft from Team Flash, I gotta say. They don't win the early game, they actually picked not enough early game, but they don't really outscale either, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the agency we have praised them for in the last 2 games and even the first series is just missing from this draft. It really all has to come from Fuk1, and he can't do it all. He had a great series so far, but it's just if all his lanes are behind, he can't really go for anything, and it's hard to lane CC with Jax onto the Olaf. It's impossible to do lane CC with Kassadin because he doesn't have any, apart from a little bit of slow. So what can the Vi really do to set up kills? He had one really successful gank, actually 2 in top and in bot lane, but now he's just existing, can't really impact the game at all.
Yeah, and the top lane gank shouldn't even have worked out because Pan was griefing his Wagner a bit earlier than that. It's just poor Fuk1, but he's on his best champion. He had good games, I gotta say. Like, even in the loss, I think he was quite okay in the general things. On the Gragas, I think that was not a bad game for him at all. And now he's just on this Vi, his best champion, but he doesn't have any setup in his lanes to really work around. I mean, what can a poor man do? Except just watch Drakthar take over the game with the rest of his team. Currently, the gold lead on without really kills or skirmishes happening. It's just grown from 3k to almost 6k. That's just how it really is for Cerberus right now. And currently, nothing really indicating Team Flash has a lot of fight going for them. And right now, there should be a power spike for them to fight out. It's Gale Force plus Imperial Mandate for the side of the Lucian Nami lane, and they still aren't strong enough to fight anywhere. They even have objective bounties by now and just claimed their first one. There's at least some little reward for them, but the fact that they already are staring down objective bounties is already very telling.
And they're 4 minutes away from the big power spike for Kassadin when his Rod of Ages is going to be completed. It's probably not enough time to get him to level 16. I would expect him to be 14 or 15 then. Probably 15 with the extra level from Rod of Ages. He really wants to be 16 for the Dragon fight, but I can't see that being a reality. So Flash needs to find a way to delay the Dragon fight for Soul. Maybe get a pick 1 minute before or 30 seconds before and just sneak the Dragon. Maybe pressure with some Baron dance on the other side of the map. But instead, it's Cerberus who find the engage. Oh, this is not good.
Cash in.
For
There's a cash in.
Plus
Artemis gets a lot of gold. Yeah, just 1,000 gold more from that skirmish alone. It was just basically one quick pickup by the side of Cerberus, and in this case Artemis really rolling in the money. And it was a pick onto the jungler, very close to the Baron itself, and this Baron will just fall down without much opposition from the side of Team Flash. They kind of have to do something, but they can't really do anything. So it will not even be contested. It will be Baron for Cerberus, and it will just bit by bit, just a bit more than 20 seconds, translate into a potential Chemtech Soul Drake spawn. So, yeah, it will just be probably Cerberus forcing the hand of Team Flash in a few minutes. With here we see again how the engage played out. Cyclone coming in, 1OP is everywhere, so he's of course also in this position to just land the dredge line and set it all up for Artemis, who basically just has to press R.
Yeah, it's such an easy game to play for Cerberus. Now it just seems like everything is coming together so nicely. Perfect pick at exactly the correct position in the map to get the easiest objective of all time in Baron. Baron is now going to persist almost to the Soul fight, maybe even a few seconds into the Soul. So that's the perfect transition there as well. They don't even really have to push for lanes because it's so early in the game. They don't have to make use of this Baron. It's just a nice extra. And yeah, it's all coming together rather easily. And in this game, it really looks like top team against one of the not so great teams in the league.
And this just spends the question to the bigger picture, right? I mean, Cerberus likely looking to win this 2-1, but are they the best team? I mean, they definitely have dropped games, and Team Wales, for example, hasn't. And they have not won as convincingly as, for example, Garm did. But within those wins itself, I think they look like a very good team. And yeah, I mean, it's just a tough question to answer, right?
Yeah, I'd say Garm didn't look too impressive into the Flash. Here we have one another engage. Yoshino, why are you there? And
huge cyclone.
The 3-man knockup from Drakthar. He's buying time, but the backline is already down. Now look at Dragnarok. It's running the enemies down. Oh, poor Sora. He wants to just go back to his pool. And that might just be the end of the game. Never mind.
This is how Team Flash just not prevented Soul, right? They just lose the game before the Soul even spawns. It's just one way to do it. Just hard for the engage. I mean, their hand was kind of forced already. They knew that they weren't really going anywhere this game with the Soul being spawned, so they just tried to force the fight. Actually, Jane gets one pick. He's level 15 on the Cassadine, but Artemis exists, and if Artemis exists close to him, so he can't really do anything about it. But it will prevent the game from finishing, and maybe we will get to see a Soul this game.
Yeah, it's true. Cerberus might have overstayed their welcome because now they have to reset. They lost a few members, so Flash can just run to the Soul, or the Dragon, I should say. In 20 seconds, it's gonna spawn. They might be first on the objective and might be able to sneak it away, delaying the Soul for Cerberus. So in the end, Yoshino, I'm not entirely sure what his thought process is here to engage. He goes down immediately, and then it's just Fuquan not quite strong enough to kill anyone in the backline. It was really funny how Ronopede tanked towers and died to no one. I'm not entirely sure why. I think he took the tank from the Olaf there with the Q. Yeah, there we go. But instead, now the big Soul fight is coming up. We're looking at a 10k gold lead.
Yeah, 10k gold lead, 3 decks already on the side of Cerberus, 0 on the side of Team Flash, and also the super minions would be slowly creeping in. Cerberus doesn't really have to be forced to really rush this down, but the fight will still be forced anyway. Huge tidal wave. But the skills of Yano did so much damage, and it's just Artemis free hitting into the backline, double kill also for him, triple kill for Artemis. I think it is at the end of the day 5 for 0, and yeah, 5 for 1 actually, because Yano died. But at the end of the day, the Soul still denied from the side of Team Flash, but they will lose the game for it. The Cassadine Jax composition not really working out as well as they planned to be.
Yeah, and the Kassadin, he had his opportunity. He was level 16 for the fight, but he was not in the same state as Dia1. He didn't get the kills funneled into him. Instead, Cerberus shut the door instantly. They watched that Dia1 game and said, no way we're falling to that. Instead, they instantly win the game in 24 minutes and 50-something seconds. Very impressive last game of the series. They struggled with Flash. They lost the game to Flash. And that was more due to Flash actually playing well than Cerberus looking bad. And this game was a big redemption, and Cerberus up to a 2-0 start into the season.
Yeah, 2-0 start in the season for Team Cerberus. They definitely looked a bit rougher on the edges in the first game, but I gotta say, if I want to answer my own question, I think not by a long shot, but I think Cerberus looks the best team in the first week, at least for now. I mean, yeah, as you said yourself, right? Garm's win against Team Flash was a 2-0, but was it more convincing than what Cerberus just now showed? I think Cerberus just now showed 3 mostly good games. I mean, of course, the one game had like one very good screw up that ultimately cost them that game, but Cerberus seems to be back at least in their general style at least, and that is something that's very refreshing to see. I mean, not just Cerberus, but also the whole VCS in general, right? So many competitive teams right now. Team Flash, even in this, looking good again, at least looking competitive again. And speaking of those teams, we have another competitive team that's looking up to new standards right now, which is Box fighting against the poster child team of the VCS in Garm later on. But for now, we will look at the in-game stats we just now get to see from our new production team. And this is Cerberus 15-5, 33, 31 in the KDA. Yado actually doing most damage, which kind of surprises me here.
Yeah. Yeah, the Yado Victor, we had a lot of questions about the Yado Victor, right? It looked a little out of place, especially in R4 with no real mid lane setup, but it's just such a comfortable champion for this player. It's one of his best champions of all time, and yeah, he dominated lane, he got his call finished, he scaled into the team fights and dealt a lot of damage, as you can see, so can't really fault Cerberus too much for this Victor pick.
Yeah, and also a lot of damage being dealt by Pan, not just physical damage and 2 damage, but also emotional damage to Yoshino. I mean, we saw this Counter-Strike play going, this is Ragnarok, not really looking too good for the side of the Jax, and also the Olaf just being such a power in these teamfights, right? While the Jax kind of just, looked like a squishy fool that just tried to dive in and instantly died. Looked a bit rough on the end of Yoshino, but we have seen good Yoshino games. Actually, most Yoshino games have been good, so gotta not go too harsh onto him for this 1 out of 5 games he played so far. And in general, I mean, the comp from Team Flash is kind of not working, I gotta say. I mean, I hate putting it down to draft diff, but I think this game, a good chunk of it was draft diff.
I'm a little sad we didn't see Flash go back to their draft from game 1 with more engage options. Very, very easy to play, pluck and play with point and click CC. Okay, Annie was banned to be fair, and Cerberus definitely eliminating one of the big contributors in Jane's Annie. But you could still pick a little bit easier of a composition to execute. The Lucian army didn't really ever do anything in this game. The Kassadin took too much time. The Jax was on the back foot, so really just not the greatest look in this last game, but let's not forget about their whole performance in the whole series, because even though they're 0-2 now, they're sitting at the bottom of the standings. This team is no pushover. Everyone has to focus on their players, because they are actually good players, and they might be able to sneak a few wins off the really good teams if they continue improving.
Definitely so, and I mean, this competition not really doing a favor to Fuk One. I think he's like one of the players that definitely has risen to proficiency in the recent times. I mean, his Vi game, this game, he kind of looked like a clown, but it wasn't ultimately his fault. I mean, the setup wasn't really there, and in both the loss and the other game, they actually won. He looked good on the Vi, especially. That was first pick for him, by the way, so the team also trusting him to some extent in that regard, and yeah. Cerberus just now rewarding themselves with their second win. But of course, we have one more series left to play. It will be Garm versus Box later on. We will have a bit longer break than the breaks we had the last few times, because it will just be the series break, which is like 20 minutes or something, or a bit longer than that. And for that, we will restart the stream as we change our producer. It will be going over from my side to the other side of Germany, and we will see each other in about half an hour. Let's stay one for that one.